Board of Education would like to start this meeting. The Sunshine Law is in compliance with Sunshine regulations. This meeting is appropriately advertised by notifying the retrospect as well as posting notices in Borough Hall, the Runnemede Post Office, the Mary Gold School, A-Line Bingham School, and the Grace Downing School. Would you please join me now for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call board members.
Angel Beebe. Here. Amy Davidson. Here. Amy Farry.
Here.
Charles Bucknine.
Here.
Maria Panzarella. Absent. Patricia Smith. Here. Samantha Spalding.
Here.
Lynn Chirillo. Here. And John Moore. Absent. 7 present, 2 absent.
Also present, Dr. Nancy Ward, Superintendent of Schools, Joanna Augustine, Business Administrator, Marie Gallagher, Principal, Bingham and Downing Schools, Mark Iannucci, Principal, Volt School, Robert Munko, Assistant Principal, Volt School, and Janet Fuel, Child Study Team Coordinator. At this time, we are open for public comment. Public comment at this time is for on any item. We're only going to do one. Does anyone have any public comments at this time? Yeah, okay. If we have questions later, I will open again if anyone needs to. Okay. We just have a few action items this morning. Under finance, I need a motion to approve items number 1 and number 2. No, number 3 and number 4. I don't have,
I'm sorry.
I'll take that.
Oh, that's the responsible.
Thank you. It's items number 1 through 5 on the new agenda.
I'll make that.
Thank you. Motion made by Patty, seconded by Charles. Any questions?
I have a question. I saw this contract with Barbara Epstein. Is it different from last year?
And here's what happened last year. Barbara Epstein last year worked with us as a learning consultant contractually 3 days a week. Now we have a full-time learning consultant back. So what happened last year was Barbara wound up doing a lot of professional development work with our teachers for literacy interventions at the lower grades and for small group and flexible grouping in the upper grades. So we're able to fund through our NCLB grant to have Barbara here 2 days a week to continue to support the literacy interventions at the Bingham and Downing schools and here at this school. So it's all grant funded, and it's an ongoing professional development.
So, professional development for who? Like, could you tell us what she does on a daily basis?
Sure. What Barbara does on a daily basis is she works with children and she works with teachers. And what she's doing is she is supporting the intervention programs. You're going to see through the board retreat that we have a new level literacy intervention program, benchmark assessment programs, things that we're doing to shore up our RTI program. And what she does is she works with teachers to ensure that that implementation is smooth. She does model lessons for them. She does demonstration lessons with them. Barbara she emails teachers at night. She really is a great support to them to improve the program. You're also going to see Mr. Iannucci put in his plans for next year additional work with the teachers of the middle school for flexible grouping with our special education students. You're going to see in some of our results that our special education students need different kinds of support and in some cases more support, so we're continuing to shore up those programs, and Mrs. Epstein does that kind of work with the teachers.
Okay, have we seen any improvement at all? having
Well-
an additional person in addition to, I'm assuming.
We
it was
didn't
full
have an
time,
additional
right?
person
We had
last
to.
year. We had
Full-time,
only
right?
her 3 days a week,
Okay.
and that was locally funded. So we didn't, right, because we didn't have a learning consultant. So what we had was, when we needed an evaluation done, it was done through the Educational Services Commission. Mrs. Epside did most of those. She wasn't available for everyone, but she did most of those through ESC. And 3 days a week, she was here to do, to support as a case manager. So she case managed our students as a learning consultant. Now, we use a learning consultant a little bit differently in our district than maybe some other districts use it. A learning consultant is supposed to be somebody who actually helps teachers in the classroom support children who are struggling. And some school districts use their learning consultant as someone who tests, evaluates, and only works with special education students. But we have the benefit of reshaping that so that you can work with children in the general education program to hopefully prevent them from getting a gap and needing to move into special education. So last year we had this person 3 days a week, and the things that she did last year were case management, which is, doing evals, doing reports, doing our classroom observations. This year, we are going to use her as a consultant.
So does she have like a set schedule? So last year we were short one person in the child study team office.
Mhm.
So she did a lot of that work, correct? This year, we're not. So she's going to be in the classroom or with the classroom teachers and the
Yes.
students.
Yes.
2 days a week, you said?
2 days a week.
What is the difference between her salary and last year?
It's the same.
Just the same.
It's the same.
Okay.
So it's roughly 12 hours a week?
It's actually 14 hours.
14?
14. She's $70 an hour. Her contract, Mrs. Spalding has her contract. If anybody wants to see it, it's fine.
Nancy, what I heard you say was the fact that she's in there modeling how to utilize new techniques. I can tell you from my experience and working with teachers as a principal for 18 years, that a one-day in-service is not as effective as ongoing in-service for your staff. If you want your teachers to develop and become the best teachers they can be, the best kind of in-service training is ongoing. We used to utilize that at my last school before I retired. It works very effectively, and you do begin to see test scores improve.
Yes, and so this would be, well, this isn't the year, and I'll tell you why, but ongoing, this is when you'll see it, and thank you very much, Mr. Buckheim. Also, something that's important to know about this is that not only is it professional development, but we're still short with support. We're still short with basic skills teachers. We're still short with, we don't have any coaches in this district like other districts do to help.
Oh, we have one.
We have no coaches. She is the reading specialist, and she's a basic skills teacher for Benton County Schools. But she's working with students every day. So coaches are people who work with teachers. Well, you know that, but I don't know if everyone knows that. So this affords us an opportunity to have a consultant working with our teachers and working with our students.
If I could just add something, being here, the amount of time I've been here with Ms. Epstein, she's the only person I've ever seen her come as an outsider and attach herself to people, and it's like they instantly buy what she's selling. She's got a bag of tricks that she's got a multiple bag, and you see the stuff. And I mean, she works with teachers on her lunches or preps over the weekend, everything, and teachers are doing what she's suggesting right away, and it's effective. We've been able to pull kids from resource and put them in the mainstream classroom successfully through the flexible grouping and other things like that. She was a great asset, so
The teachers love her.
that's my
It's in all
endorsement.
schools, right?
Yes. 2 days a week will allow her to be in Bingham and Downing 1 day a week and Bowles another day a week. However, she's really going to go where she's needed, and that's what ended up happening last year. Last year, she was mostly housed here, and she started out here. Come spring, she got to Bingham and Downing, and she made a difference immediately.
I would like to jump on what Martha's saying, and also, like, she knows so much. This is what's been so helpful to us. Like, we're about to put in 2 new programs this year that will hopefully address our issues with reading. Both of them, her initiatives, the benchmarking assessment, which she managed to set up between Nancy and myself and somebody she knew. We had a workshop in the summer for teachers to teach them how to do the benchmark assessments. And then this
this LLI program that she believes will make a big difference for disabled readers. You guys, the board paid for Jen Pulsinella to go down to, I think it was North Carolina, to have the workshop, but Barbara paid for herself and went along to get that training as well. Like, she goes so above and beyond, but she was hired last year to kind of do the testing and be the, but she went so far beyond that. I was just amazed. And when we were looking for a learning consultant, they were all saying, why aren't we hiring Barbara? Why aren't we hiring Barbara? Well, she's retired, you know, she can't be hired. She's basically collecting a pension, you know. But she really was effective, and the teachers all really appreciated her.
And she'll go above and beyond again. We'll pay her for 14 hours a week, but I guarantee you she will be working on the weekends, and she'll be putting a lot of her own time in. She loves it here in Runnemede, and she's very excited.
She commutes from Delaware.
I'm sorry, as far as funding, I know you said that last year her salary was locally funded. This year's through Title I and NCLBs. What is the future prospect for funding a salary like this?
As long as the board continues to get NCLB funds, it looks like you could continue to fund this. If NCLB funds would be reduced, then the board would have to make a decision as to whether or not they wanted to continue this position out of the local budget. But I say we make hay while the sun shines, because the more we have somebody like Barbara Epstein in this district, there was another old person, that must have been another old person.
That's okay, I understand.
Anybody understand that?
I did.
Oh, here we go again. I gotta go to the one. I need to Google 32-year-old quotes and see if I can do a better job. Anyhow, you know, do it while you can, get it while you can. Anyway. Barbara's available, and she wants to do it. We've got the money to do it. It helps our teachers, so if she's here. Bottom line. So we were still asking questions. Any other questions?
No, and the reason why, you know, because of the construction and everything, we just got these packets yesterday, so we didn't really know. We all knew that she was, that we paid, like she was part of our district last year, but we really didn't know what she did. So when you see, you know, a contract here, even if it's funded through NCLB and it's $40,000, we just wanted to have a little background knowledge of who is she and what is she doing in our district before we made the approval.
Sure.
That's all.
Understandable.
Is there any other questions? All right, roll call, board members.
Angel Beebe?
Yes.
Tammy Davidson?
Yes.
Amy Farah?
Yes.
Charles Buckheim?
Yes.
Patricia Smith?
Yes.
Samantha Spalding?
Yes.
Lynn Terrell?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Under personnel, we have one item on the addendum. I need a motion to approve that item, please. Motion made by Amy,
Second?
seconded by Lynn. Questions?
Question?
Yeah.
I'm assuming this is an adjustment with the hours of the two individuals. That was good. I understood that.
Roll call.
Angel Beebe?
Yes.
Tammy Davidson?
Yes.
Amy Farah?
Yes.
Charles Buckheim?
Yes.
Patricia Smith?
Yes.
Samantha Spalding?
Yes.
Lynn Terrell?
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
At this time, I think we're ready for our board retreat.
And I like to call this, when I describe it to other people, this is sort of like a state of the district, like the president does a state of the union. So if you can indulge my ego, and all of our egos, in that we would even be doing something that can be likened to the United States and the president. This is an opportunity for the Board of Education every year to get their finger on the pulse of what has happened in the previous year, and then also it informs you so that you can make your goals for this upcoming school year. So I did a little bit of tweaking, but pretty much what you got last night is the substance of it. Please refer, board members, to the updated version that was in your package today for the most updated version of what we have. So, overview of what we're going to be looking at. We're going to look at the highlights of accomplishments, review and analysis of data. I'm going to talk to you about intervention referral services, 504 plans, And then you're going to hear from all of our people who are here today, our administrators here today, regarding our school-based data. So jumping right in, here are the highlights of our accomplishments. I feel like we were very fortunate to return to full-time business administrator. We welcomed Joanne through the course of last year, and that was a lot of hard work to make that happen, but the district needs it, and Joanne hit the ground running and hasn't stopped since. And the good news also is that the district is in, and Joanne can attest to that, good financial shape. We're in good shape. We're not in dire need and dire straits. There's always things that we need to do, capital improvements being some,
Right.
but at this stage of the game, we're in good shape.
Right, and that's one area that I was concerned with come the end of the fiscal year too, because the fact that the whole school development aid has pretty much gone away for right now, and there's still, I went to CUSAC training yesterday too, because we're set to have that done this year between October and February as well. And they still said the same thing, that the money is not out there, and the people that I was sitting with, there was a lot of other VAs from all different counties saying they're not getting the reimbursements from any of the projects that were already approved. It's a long time coming, so in that area, we can't wait for the state for aid. So in order to address any maintenance issues or building improvement issues that we need to do it by increasing our capital reserve, which is what I did at the end of June, and the board approved that, so I appreciate that.
If anybody has any questions, just stop me in the middle of this. We also got Race to the Top 3 grant, and we're using it for teacher evaluation. You all know that there was new curricula written for all the subjects aligned with New Jersey standards and Common Core state standards. We continue to improve our response to intervention program at the 1st to 3rd grade levels, and we continue to improve in the middle school. Our advisory period, the advisory period, you may know, is used to pre-teach and reteach and support students. In some cases, it's for enrichment. In other cases, it's for students who are struggling. The other good news is we added, with board approval, a drama club this year that was well participated, and it was an excellent performance, and we expect that that's even going to grow. So, we also expanded the summer program, included summer music, which was funded by Rotary, and we planned for the expansion of technology. Actually, fingers crossed, this library will look different the next time we have a board meeting, because Mr. Iannucci agreed to do pilot testing for NWEA, which afforded us some dollars. And with those dollars, we are in the process of getting a new smart board, and it's going to be located over there. Like I said, fingers crossed that we will be able to attain that goal. And we're going to be doing some different things with laptops and different computing in here. Wireless access will be happening within the next couple of months at Binghamton Downing School. We have received our iPads, so there's a lot of expansion there. And we are ahead of schedule for the new teacher evaluation system. We are also preparing for CUSAC monitoring, yippee, in fall of 2012. So we'll be ready to rock. Doesn't it feel like we done?
Yes,
I know.
What is that, every 3 years? Is that
Every 3
every
years.
three?
Yes,
That's 3 years flew by.
And if you don't get your 80%, then they continue you on a corrective action plan, and you have to do. So they gave us a plan, and we made it, and so we are an improved CUSAC district now. We're not operating on a plan anymore, but who knows? You know what'll happen coming up. We'll peel back that paperwork when we need to in plenty of time. All right. So intervention and referral services. I don't know if you guys know. Certainly Samantha knows. I'm sure that Lynn remembers. Intervention and referral services. Is everybody familiar with that? Mr. Buckheim, you probably know as well. But this is what we have in our general education program to make sure that we're doing everything in general education that we can so that we don't go right to special education. What happened several years ago is that we identified that children who are struggling are children who are struggling. And we're really responsible in general education to make sure that if they're experiencing learning, behavioral, or health difficulties, that we are helping children in general education. They don't just jump right into special ed. So the focus and the concern is with students, and the end result is student improvement. So it's a formal, coordinated, well-articulated system of supportive activities and services. And it's up and running, and you're going to see some statistics as to how we do it here. So here are the number of students through the grade levels. We didn't include 8th grade because this is 7th. This is all grades going into the next grade. So they identified several students throughout the grades that needed intervention and referral services for a variety of different reasons.
This was just something, Dr. Ward, that I found in our school board notes
Oh, okay.
about like what board members should ask about district data. So I copied it
Oh.
for everybody.
Oh,
Well,
good.
Mr. Iannucci copied it.
Oh, okay.
If you're wondering what we're passing on.
Yeah. I knew you were
Yes.
passing notes,
Yeah.
but no, that's good.
I have one there
So-
for you.
All right, thanks. So when I said ask questions, now you have a tip sheet. That's cool. All right, 504 plans. It's another protected group of students. 504s, although exist in for adults and for children, and it's Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So individuals are protected from discrimination based on their disability, and it's about access. 504 is about access to the educational program, and you were identified as in need of a 504 plan as a result of some disability or condition that affects a major life activity. Major life activity is learning. So access to the school program is what we look at when we look at 504 plans. That's a lot to read, but I really put that in there mostly so that you could see it's a whole bunch of stuff that you could have happening. Any type of disability. You can actually be a special education student with an IEP and have a 504 plan as well.
I was gonna ask that.
Yes.
What is, and Ms. Fiona knows me from my own communicating here, what is the difference between a 504 and IEP?
Okay, the difference between a 504 and an IEP, they're both you're both bound legally for both of them. What would you say, Mrs. Field?
Well, I would say the difference is where the laws were generated in the first place, and IDEA, which the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is the law that governs special education. So that's the code that we refer to for special education. 504 was generated back in 1973, I think, from the what became the Americans with Disabilities Act, which wasn't an education law, but it's a general anti-discrimination law. That would be the law that requires you to put in curb cuts and elevators and that kind of thing. To provide people who have disabilities with access to get to what they need. So that's not an educational law, and they were separated for a long time. And I think the way that it got connected with schooling was in 1999, I think. There was clarification from the federal government under that ADA type of law that students who have ADHD could use that medical disability as a mechanism to get access to what they need in school.
Okay.
Because
maybe extra time on a test.
Right.
Maybe, so it doesn't mean they have a
Okay.
learning disability, they have a something medical more.
It's the difference, maybe they're not classified.
Right.
Well, that's right. Yes, because
So for services under
IEP is
right. If you think
classified.
of the IDEA with an IEP, the IEP comes with the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's the education law.
Okay.
And the other one is ADA, accessibility for a disability.
Okay.
But what it did do was it allowed, that clarification from the federal government, allowed students who have disabilities, but they don't require special education. They don't require specialized instruction. They may not have learning disabilities or things like that.
So it's really an environmental. 504 is an environmental factor.
Right.
Exactly.
That's a good way to say it.
So does that affect
And it's
funding?
about access. I'm sorry?
Does that affect funding somehow?
No.
It's on that way?
Once again, there's no funding.
Well,
for
there's no
members
funding for
who have an
504s.
INRS, there's no funding for 504, and there's very limited funding
But
for special education.
For the IEPs that they get, there's funding that comes in.
Well, it's not one-to-one.
Specified.
It's not one-to-one necessarily. It's,
Okay.
there is a certain amount. We have to do a special education report annually, and they give us, it certainly gives X number of dollars, but it certainly doesn't cover the cost of educating students.
And it's not per, we don't tell the state what does it cost us for every individual student that we have. We have to give them the number of special ed students, and actually they take our entire school population, and there's a formula that the state uses that says, well, you probably have the traditional, the average number of percentage of special education students, so this is the amount of money that we're going to give you based on that. But what has happened in special education, though, is many children who in the past might have gone into special education because that's all that was available, now can have a 504 plan to get what they need. So in a way, that probably has brought down some of the classification numbers over the years, but it's really increased the numbers of students with 504s. Now it's very common to hear about a 504, where in 1995 you never heard about that before.
In a 504 plan, a parent can write a 504 plan for their
Parent
child,
sits
right?
with us.
Yeah,
Because
there's
I've
a-
been at schools where the parent wrote the plan and obviously
It's
gave it to
supposed
the
to be a
Yeah.
team. It's
Mhm.
supposed to be a team who writes a 504.
Mhm.
And I would say most of our 504s have medical, other than the ADHD, that's the big one. But we have like kids with asthma that have a 504s, diabetes kids have 504s, physical problems. Sometimes if a child gets injured before the testing, we do an emergency 504. You know, like we had a girl one year that broke her arm. Actually, after the first day of New Jersey Asked, and we had to write an emergency 504, and then we had to scribe her through the test. I mean, it's to cover a lot of it's physical, and it can follow them through their life. It can go into the workplace and everything. I mean, like classifications don't necessarily do that.
No, that's
504 plans are good in college
Yeah.
also.
Yes.
You can use them in college for extended time on
And
testing
they get
and things like that too.
SATs and things like that. If they have a 504 plan, they can get extended.
Yeah, and college won't have an IEP.
No.
Right.
So these
Can
numbers
have
that we have here, some end up being IEPs and some end up being 504s then, right? Like this.
Well, these are all the
intervention
kids who have 504 plans. The next slide.
Right, some students, that's a good question, some students can be in an IRS plan for their entire school career.
And they can go one way or
Because
the
they
other
just,
off of that.
and kind of what that is, oh, it's basic skills, and it's, or go nowhere. 504 typically, if you're in an IRS plan and then suddenly, this probably has happened, a parent comes in with a diagnosis of ADHD or some other auditory or whatever, they don't need the services and the protections of IDEA, but a 504 will accommodate.
So they don't necessarily go either way then. They can just stay
Yes.
in intervention referral
Yes.
services and not even get in 504.
Right.
Yes.
But it's like someone looking after, keeping up, making sure that the kid is, and making the contact with the parent to make sure that, you know, they're doing everything they can to make sure that the child is learning.
And what we do is codify the accommodations.
Yes.
Like once you write a 504 plan, you've written down what the accommodations are going to be, and then it's incumbent upon us to provide those accommodations. So, like a lot of times the accommodations, like if it's ADHD, many times it's testing accommodations.
Yes.
But if it's physical, many times it's accommodations that the nurse is responsible for.
Right.
You know, like it all depends, like we don't have to give test accommodations to a kid with asthma. You know, but the nurse might have to do certain things, so.
My niece has one arm.
Or maybe
She
in,
was a 504
yeah.
because,
And she probably doesn't need that.
well, she can't feel gym.
Right.
So she needs a 504
Right.
because what if that gym teacher became agitated that she wasn't able to run through? So it's for her own protection as well. So, you know.
Thank you. That kind of helps with, this is, the thing that I think is important for boards of education to recognize is that some people have children who have disabilities, and so they know about it. And if you don't have children with disabilities, you might not recognize that we have a whole spectrum of children on a continuum of all kinds of things, from something as minor as controlled asthma but needs a 504 to something as major as a child who is hardly ever in school because they have such significant medical problems that we have to do homebound instruction and things like that. So it helps the board understand this is who our children are. We have children who are for everybody.
Now I have a question too, yes, now, as far as hierarchy of parental involvement, you're talking, you know, 504 plans, it's a team. When we first begin with the IRS interventions, how involved are parents in that?
We notify the parents that we're having the meeting. They're not as involved.
Okay.
The 504, they have to be there. I mean,
Right.
and it's just like with the class, like
there are children we want to make referrals on, and if the parents say, no, we don't make them.
Right.
You know, we can't even make them. And the same way with the 504, we might, like, there's been times where I've offered, where children are having difficulties with certain things, and I've offered the parents 504s, and they've chosen not to go that route. But we can't do a 504 really unless they're sitting there with us.
Right, that's
So
what I'm saying,
signing
there's
off.
definitely a graduated
Yes.
degree of parental involvement as you go up the
Right.
scale, starting
With the seriousness
Right.
of the child's issues.
But if you were having an INRS meeting about my son, for example, and you notified me, could I come?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's the actual way, when you go to those trainings that I've been to, that's what they really recommend.
Because at training, it's like, we beg them to come.
Mhm.
Yes.
We want them to come, so and then we invite the student in too, because they're older.
Part of the action plan development.
Yes, yeah.
Right.
And while 504s and IDEA are almost like legal contracts, INRS could definitely be implemented by a parent as a legal contract, and certainly, it's, the other thing is on the legal side, it's our way of tracking that
Yes.
we have intervened for the appropriate educational program for your child once identified. And if we have not identified, and we have not intervened, then we're liable. First of all, morally, it's not the right thing to do if we don't intervene. And then legally, it's important that we do because, excuse me, it demonstrates everything that the district has done in order to support the child's educational program. It's part of free and appropriate public education. So here's who we have, the numbers. We're less likely to identify a 504 in kindergarten or first grade, but you never know. They can come in with a need for it. And then it grows. And sometimes I have to say that this year, more specifically, when I started to look at the New Jersey Ask data, I started to wonder about things like, we all did, we all looked at the data, but we began to look at how many INRS students happen to be in a certain grade level? How many 504 students happen to be in a certain grade level? And because our numbers are so low, we're typically under 100 in every grade level, we're statistically sensitive to small numbers of students who are outside of the norm, if you will, on a standard curve when you're looking at standardized and state tests. So those are some things to keep in mind. So I just wanted to also talk to you in a little more depth about response to intervention, RTI. What is it? What does it do? It's a framework that supports students who are potentially at risk, and it's supposed to assist them before they fall behind. So the student could be identified as having an INRS plan, and part of the INRS plan is that they will receive Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 2, or Tier 3 services. More likely the plan is Tier 2 or Tier 3, because Tier 1 is just core instruction for all students. So these are the tiers, and they show it in a hierarchy as least intensive to most intensive, all students to get into a one-to-one. So last year, and we are planning to once again this year, have Mrs. DiGiulio come back to do one-to-one with our most intensive needs. So why are we doing this? We're doing this because we've identified these struggling students, and we're putting the appropriate plan in place in general education. We're also doing this because it's we're trying to avoid the costly and in my opinion, morally wrong thing to do to immediately get children into special education. Why take a child and classify them as IDEA, as in need of an IEP, and put a label on them if we can do things in general education? The other thing is, once you get started down the road of an IEP, you wind up, it's expensive, it's got a lot of other, you need additional staff. So I always look at things, number one, from what's the right thing to do for students, and number two, what is the best fiscal thing, the most efficient thing to do? How do we spend our district money? In this case, these things are married. The right thing to do is to give children what they need. Why do we let them get special education? So this is what we're doing, and we're doing it in tiers. The way our tiers work, I'll show you in the next slide, but this is just an explanation of what RTI is. And our focus has been mostly on literacy, although we do small group for mathematics as well. We universally screen all K-3 with the DIBELS so that we have an understanding as to where they are coming in and as they grow with their literacy, where they are, what their status is with regard to literacy. And we see what their specific needs are. And so then, that's handled in the classroom in small group instruction with guided reading, but then, if we find that they reach a certain level, then they work with Mrs. Pulcinella in first, second, and third grade, and Mrs. Strong for mathematics, not coming out of the dibbles, but we get other information. So we use a program called Wilson Foundations, which is the phonemic awareness program that's by Wilson Language, and that's in all the K-3 classrooms. And Tier 2, they get their small group instruction with Mrs. Pulcinella. In Tier 3, they get individual instruction. We are not doing necessarily RTI, although Mr. Ionucci and Mr. Mungall are going to be implementing aspects of RTI in middle school. RTI is known to be that you start that program in the lower grades because that's when you identify children who are struggling with literacy and numeracy from an early time. So you're looking at reading acquisition, you're looking at the onset of reading, you're learning to read, and so you know that that's where you're going to put your resources.
It's when are those K-3 kids screened through the DIBBLE process?
In September, like,
It's 3 times a year.
It is 3 times a year.
Yeah. September, January, February, and then at the end.
Okay.
I have a question. The intervention, if we go to INRS, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those numbers, those children are therefore involved in the RTI program?
in
Correct.
some capacity.
Well,
Or no?
I would say
100%.
yes, and sometimes a result of the intervention moves them from 2 to 3. Like
Okay.
if they're already getting 2 and the teacher still believes they're really struggling, then we try to move them into 3. But I have to say, last year, we were really limited in what we could do because of our numbers. We had, I had Mrs. DiGiulio who did all the 3rd grade, 2 and 3 in both schools. And then I had Miss Pulcinella who did 2 and 3 at Bingham and 3 at Downing. And I had Mrs. Lyle 2 days a week who did the 2 at Downing with grades 1 and 2. And then Mrs. Strong and Mrs. Lyle just picked up the kindergarten. Now this year, Mrs. Lyle is going to be full-time in Bingham and Downing. So that gives us a little bit more ability, I'm hoping. So Ms. Pulcinella is just going to be dealing with the 3s this year, and she has this new program that she's just been trained in. So she's going to do 5 days a week with these children. Last year she could only get them 3 days a week. This year she's going to get them 5 days a week. And Mrs. Lyle's going to pick up the tier 2. And between Mrs. Lyle and Mrs. Strong, they'll pick up the kindergarten.
So that is in preparation for the New Jersey Ask in 3rd grade.
Well, hopefully, if we get them in early, like by the time they're in 1st grade and they're struggling readers, the earlier we can intervene, hopefully, the better the results will be down the road.
But I'm saying to get the one-on-one instruction in 3rd grade all year is in preparation, hopefully, to improve our New Jersey Ask scores in 3rd grade.
We have tried so many different things to improve our New Jersey Ask scores. I mean, we put in foundations, which I think was a missing piece in our series. We're now moving to Rigby. 3rd grade had it last year. 2nd grade's going to have it this year. Hopefully 1st grade will have it next year. We can't afford to buy more than 1 grade level a year because it's a very expensive proposition. So that's in place. We did the RTI last year, but we didn't have enough people, and we didn't have the program we're going to have this year. So hopefully, and also now we're going to do this benchmarking,
Right.
this level, which I hope is going to give us one more thing to look at. We'll have that, we'll have dibbles, we'll have map scores. We should be able to be more analytical about what the issues are, because that's a one-on-one test.
Oh, you're going to have the benchmarks be one-on-one?
The benchmarking has to be one-on-one. You have to, the teacher has to sit with every child to get their level. And the reason that, like, I don't know how much you've been involved in all this, but you might not have put it all together. When Leanne Michelle was hired for the whole year,
Right.
because she's going to be doing the maternity leave
Right.
starting October 5th, we're hoping that she's going to be able to cover the classes in the beginning of the year, so the teachers will be able to, because we think the teachers need to level their own children. I mean, I could have Leanne level and everybody, but I think it's more important for the teachers to level their own children. So they're gonna start the 10th, we're gonna start on the 10th. You know, the first 2 half days, and then we have the full days. We're gonna start right away with the teachers leveling the children. She'll do one class till they're done, then she'll move to the next class, then she'll move to the next class. And hopefully we'll get them all leveled by the end of September, which Barbara Epstein has informed us is so critical to really teaching them where they are. So we're not leveling kindergarten because you can't level them yet, they can't read. You know, we'll level them in January, all right? We're planning to level them in January.
I was like, oh, I better start doing something.
No. There's no way you can level kindergarten.
I'm like, what?
So we'll do 1, 2, and 3.
That'll be fun.
And then hopefully by January, when they do begin to get some of their reading skills, we'll level them in January. Because there are some kindergartners that come in reading, believe it or not. And some of them really are ready by the time they come to kindergarten. So hopefully we'll identify them and be able to put them where they belong and push them ahead.
That was a question, because I know when I was in Downing, we would move for reading.
Mhm.
Like when I was in 3rd grade, I went upstairs to 5th grade for reading. Do they do?
No, we do that all in the classroom through the guided reading.
Guided
groups.
reading groups,
Mhm.
that's right, because I did teach kindergarten that day, and
Right.
there was all different groups.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's how that's done now.
Yes.
Okay, so
And
it
the,
still
and the
is done.
series that we have enables us
Yes.
to meet the needs of kids that read far above what would be the normal level.
Mhm.
So hopefully all of this will eventually, now we're still in the position where Mrs. Strong is the only one we have for math in both. She has to do both schools, so we can't do more than like what would be a tier 2, and we can't do a tier 3 intervention in math. 'Cause
But
we just
our
don't have-
focus is on the literacy,
Right
because
now.
that's where, right now, because we always flip-flop. We're right now with our focus is on literacy, because that's where we need it.
Yeah, and when I was first in district,
It was math.
math was our disaster.
Right.
It was our disaster. Now math is our strength and literacy is our difficulty.
I have a quick question. You mentioned that we have one program for 3rd grade, we're implementing for 2nd grade because it's too expensive to go all the way down. How much is this program per year?
It's just the initial output. What was it, like $15,000 to buy it for Binghamton Downing? Or more, because we bought the intervention.
Just for one grade?
For one grade.
15,000 for one grade?
Maybe 16 with the intervention.
Okay.
And that, I can't really say if it's more or less expensive as you go down to first kindergarten.
I don't think it's
I was-
much.
Probably
I
about
don't
the
think
same.
it's
So
much. Probably about the same.
right now we have it, that's a good question.
We
Right
already
now we have
have
it
it.
3rd and 2nd,
Second.
but
Well,
we
we haven't
want
got
it
it.
in kindergarten and first.
We definitely, yeah, we
It's
definitely
gonna
want to
push
do
down.
that.
Actually, we have it in 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd.
Okay.
They
It
started
started
with
in
fifth
4th
and
and
fourth.
5th. When we first, we started trophies
I remember.
4 years ago.
Mhm.
And our teachers identified that the trophies in 4th and 5th grade wasn't matching up with the guided reading. So they were ready to really take the ball and run with it. We gave them professional development, and they started reading 3 years ago. 3 or 4 years ago. Maybe 3 years ago.
You were here.
I was here, yeah. And so we've begun to push it down.
Are we not allowed to use like funding for that?
We are, right?
What do you mean by funding? No, we're not allowed to use Title I funds for that.
Title I fund, that
No,
was
we're
my
not a
question.
school-wide program. Title I funds are really only to be used for at-risk students.
Right.
So that's the reason why Barbara Epstein can work out of Title I, because she really is focusing on at-risk students. So the other thing, Ms. Gallagher brings up the point of, it almost seems like you can never have enough people to support struggling students. And so recognizing that our funds are limited for personnel, because that's the most expensive thing you spend in your budget, what we're doing additionally with the benchmark assessment, the level of literacy assessment, and Mrs. Epstein coming in, is that our classroom teachers are getting more information about how to work with students at every level. Guided reading, they're doing well, but you know what, every time you put something in, if you don't protect it and take care of it, you just can't let a child grow on their own. Well, I took good care of him when he was a baby, I'm just gonna let him grow now at 6 years old. You have to keep on taking care of it and protecting it. So by Barbara coming in, she's gonna be working with teachers to make sure, number one, that guided reading is going the way it's supposed to be. Flexible grouping, and what we mean by flexible grouping is that you are grouping according to what you're teaching and where students are with what you're teaching. So for instance, if we find that students are grouped by their ability level for reading, where they are with their reading, and if we find that the students are grasping something and getting it well, they can move on to the next level, where students who maybe were at another level are, wow, this whole skill is just not, it's not working cognitively for them, they need to be in this group for that. That's flexible. They don't start in one group at the beginning of the year and stay in that group for the course of the year. It's by skill and by their ability level. So she's going to make sure that the teachers can interpret the benchmark assessment data properly and get additional interventions for their low group, because remember, these are the students who we identify as in need of some sort of intervention by a specialist outside of their classroom. The classroom teacher is still working with students who are maybe just at grade level and they need help to stay at grade level, or maybe just below grade level. So once again, that's the continuum of our classrooms. And so we have children who are just holding their own at grade level, but teachers need to know how to scaffold them and keep moving them up. Or what to do for students who they just need to keep making progress in the grade level. They're never going to go from being an average student to a gifted student, but you give them everything that they need.
So in your professional opinions, if we could
I knew you were going to ask this question.
find the money, should we get that for first grade and kindergarten? Rigby? Will it help us in the long run with our New Jersey A score to get away from the
Definitely
one?
first grade, we definitely would like to have it. Kindergarten, they love what they do, you know what I mean? And they don't depend as much on the series to do what they do, but I think ultimately we want to get kindergarten because we want everybody on the same page. But first grade, I had asked Nancy this year and we just couldn't find it in the budget this year. So the plan is to have it for next year, the Rigby. But
we've been doing it a grade at a time.
So does Rigby align with the Common Core standards?
Very good question.
yes, I would say
yes.
much more than
Even more.
trophies because I know this is what Mark was telling me when we were going into it. There's a lot more of the little books are informational texts, which is a big piece of the new standards. Like the literature texts are something that we've always done and always had, and you know that's what the kids love. But they also love the informational texts, the social studies, the science, and evidently a lot of the little books in the Rigby series are the informational texts, which means we don't have to go out. Like this year, the first grade teachers will have to go out looking for that stuff. You know, they'll have to find informational text to work with their children. They're there in the trophies, but they might not be as readily available. But the Rigby series, they are. I know a lot of them are informational. I would say it's 50-50.
So we've had Rigby for 4 years, and it's
Fifth, fourth, third, this will be our fourth year, second.
this will be our fourth
Second's
year.
getting it. Yeah. Second's getting it.
So technically, the third grade this year that takes New Jersey Ask will still have lower scores because they've never been exposed to Rigby.
I don't think you can make that. I don't think you can make that correlation. I don't think that's fair to make that correlation.
No, because I think that the teachers can teach from what they have. But I think the problem
guided
is
reading.
we don't know yet. We're not sure yet whether it's reading or writing because we didn't get. All we got was the preliminary scores.
Oh.
The 10th of September we'll get back the detailed scores.
Why is it
Usually
taking so long?
Usually for us, it's the
I
writing,
don't have an answer to that.
which wouldn't really be as connected to the guided reading.
To the guided reading, yeah.
And we've worked hard with the writing. I have to say this third grade group was a low group because I've been going in.
And we always have them years where you have an overall.
And guess what?
They follow us up with
The group going into third grade have so many special ed kids, we had to separate them into 2 rooms. There are 12, I believe, classified children going into third grade. So it's going to be a struggle. Now, I wanted to point this out too with this new LLI that we just spent a lot of money purchasing and sent Jenna to the training, and Barbara went to the training. That's a program that's supposed to help children get one level in 18 weeks. Might be a miracle, but for some of them, because some of them are so very low, you know, some of our special needs children. But every special ed teacher is going to use it with their children, grades 1 through 3. Every special ed teacher is going to use it. We're also gonna train Mary Ralston. Hopefully, we don't know when she might be able to start to use that, but we hope she'll be able to use it with kindergarten eventually. They're gonna use it, and every tier 3 child will also have it. And it will be in addition to their classroom reading. It's not gonna be a replacement group. Like sometimes the pull-out is the replacement group, but this is not. This is going to be in addition to what they get in their classroom reading. So they should be getting this program plus a double dose of reading. We're hoping. But then again, the writing is going to be the issue. If it is the writing, we'll find that out. We can tell you that at the September board meeting.
Mrs. Grasso is gonna get trained in this.
Yeah, and Ms.
So
Grasso
there's
also.
your, Bowles, basic skills teachers, or teachers who are doing interventions,
Right.
this year are also gonna get trained in LLI.
LLI, who's the publisher?
Heinemann. It's leveled literacy intervention.
And it aligns with Pontus and Pinell. Pontus and Pinell were at that workshop, and they gave a good portion of that workshop.
So do we need, essentially, if it was a perfect world, do we really need another basic skills teacher?
We need more than one. Volts needs it desperately, because Volts has one basic skills teacher.
So reality is we need at least 2.
Well, see, interestingly, before that major cut a couple years ago when Governor Christie, we had 2 in each of the elementary schools. We had 2.
So
And then we ended up having 1 in each. Now we're back to, I guess we have 3 if you count. Well, actually, we have 3 and we almost have 2. We almost have 4 back because we have
You have
Peggy
2 and a half.
Lyle, Jenna Pulcinella,
3.5.
Corky Strong, and Pat DiGiulio 3 days a week.
Right now, we did manage it by reallocation of staff. And I think going forward for the next year, it should be a budget consideration. But I think one of the things that happens is that we, when we have retirements and we get breakage, we then can afford to hire a step 1 teacher.
Right.
So possibly, but that should be on our radar. That should be
Yeah, and it
something
might
that
be a
we-
great idea to hire a step 1 teacher for a classroom and pull out a
Pull out a-
specialist like we did with Jenna.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
we
that's-
moved her out of first grade. We
Right.
hired somebody coming in on the first level.
And then
And
use
then
her
she-
expertise to.
Because she is a reading specialist.
But whatever, I think that recommendation will be, certainly would be forthcoming.
Now, do we still have regular classroom teachers with specialist
I think over here you have
certifications?
some.
Yeah, I have 3 right now that have reading specialists.
Okay.
And I have Karen Clements also is a reading specialist.
Yeah, so there, I'm sure that.
And I think
We'll put
some
our
of the
heads
younger
together.
teachers.
And what is Karen teaching?
She's got
Special
3rd grade
education.
special education.
Third grade special, okay.
So is there enough historical data to say that pre-Christie cuts, we were in a better spot with test scores, with our kids really getting enough more of what they needed and having everyone accounted
Honestly,
for? Or are we
I would honestly say.
coming back from the downward spiral
I
and
think we had a
trying?
downward spiral and we only had 1 in each building, but I think this year, with all the support and with the people that we do have in place, because Pat DiGiulio is a reading specialist, Jen is a reading specialist, we have Barbara helping us out. Peggy Lyle will be full-time with us, and Corky's a very good math teacher. Hopefully, we will be in a better place this year than we've been for a long time. We started it last year, and it's better this year.
You can have all of the people in the world, but if the people who work with children aren't trained to do the right things for them, then you're spending a lot of money not to get a
I
good
didn't mean
result.
just an aid, I was thinking
Yeah.
like, it's sort of
Like
like
a-
a person.
I wish I could tell you that historical data followed, that in 2009, 2010, before the cuts, the test scores were better. They're not. But I can talk to you for a long time about the validity of these test scores as well. So about the test, about what this test looks like this year.
I wish you could see this test. I really do. You can't, because nobody's supposed to ever see it.
Here's what I can tell you about, this is Nancy's bias, but it is supported by evidence, by empirical research as well. The greatest factor for children being successful in school is their socioeconomic status. So when the economy starts to tank and parents are struggling at home to make ends meet and they don't have time to read to their kids and they can't afford to send their kids to preschool and get them started on the right foot, and if kids are worried about what's happening in their home, that's the biggest reason. So if I had to look at 2010, 11, 11, 12, and saw that maybe we had any decrease in our test scores, we talk at every administrative team meeting about how many children we are literally supporting every day and giving them a safe place. Runnemede is a wonderful place, but as a working class community, a bunch of people are living on the edge through no fault of their own because of unemployment, and they're worried about their houses, they're underwater with their houses, they aren't making mortgage payments, there are more foreclosures than ever. If I had to look at tests, I haven't drawn that line, but if I had to draw a line and create a correlation, as much as we do in the school, and I think we work very hard, and our plan is always to work harder, I think it has a lot more to do with what's happening socioeconomically in our communities. That's my belief. So, but what do? You can't use it as an excuse, Amy, and I know that you would never take it as an excuse, and neither would we. I think it's just where we put our resources, and thank goodness we work together all of the time, try to figure out. So if people are asking you about what we spend our money on and why we need counselors and why we need nurses and why we need administrators and all of those things, it's because it takes a little village inside of this Runnemede school system to make sure that every kid is okay. We did a program, and I didn't mention this to the board, probably should have, I apologize. We had a local ministry group who gave our students, a number of our students, backpacks and school supplies that we gave them this year. And we must have had 70 or 80 backpacks in that room that Michelle DeMattis worked over the summer, contacted parents, people came, and they got school supplies and backpacks. And they were gladly supplied because they're people in need. So we need people to help our families and help our kids, and that's basically where we stand.
And also, if I could add a comment, because you brought this up on our the last board meeting, why some families aren't applying for the free lunch program.
Absolutely.
They're embarrassed to have to admit it, and it's a
We
shame
need to
because
push that this year.
that it's there for them. So we are in tough times economically.
But I also know with some of the volunteer work that I do through Trinity Lutheran Church that they feed about 45 of our families on a weekly basis. Go there to their pantry to get food. There's about 88, but I asked for a breakdown, not names, just a breakdown, and there was some from Belmar, and there was some from Glendora, and a few from like that Barrington Magnolia border, but there was close to 50 families that depend on that pantry on a weekly basis to get food from our town here in Runnemede.
And they supplement with the Catholic churches, the two Catholic churches, same
Right.
people, not on a weekly basis.
Right, they could go to this pantry, I believe, on a weekly basis.
Yes, and also to
Thursdays.
reiterate that point, there are some people that are now going to that pantry for help that used to be contributors to that pantry.
Yes.
They can no longer do that.
Yes.
You're lucky, you're over there every day.
Quiet here.
Live it every day. So I think that when the economy is the way it is now, I think that communities like Runnemede tend to be more vulnerable than some of the other communities. And because our numbers are so small, 5 new kids who are getting assistance or need assistance and we're getting in our work affect all of our statistical data.
I have a quick question real quick. Sure. Just kind of feeding off of that, we were just talking about. Do you think, and I guess if I best ask teachers about this, if we had like an after-school homework program with like volunteers, like teenagers or high school graduates going to college, came in and helped the kids with their homework, do you think that would help at all, possibly? Or, like, I know we used to have homework club here. Do we still have that? Do we still have homework club?
No. So I would say that it's possible, it's an idea. A lot of our teachers stay after school to give kids extra help, but it's something to think about. Do they stay, would they stay, those kinds of things. I don't know, if 20 kids stay, it would be worth it, right?
Some kids have after-school activities, so another
Right.
possibility, one of the things that I did at the vocational school, we could do it here because we have a Juke National Honor Society, is I had the members of my National Honor Society, because part of it is service.
Service, absolutely.
During their lunch period, they would be in the library, and children needed help with any subject.
We do that here as well.
Perfect.
Grade 3
Excellent.
students work a lot with our 4th and 5th graders during lunch times. They work with the kids after school. tutoring.
Frightened students
We
call
have
it bingham too.
peer
Not
tutoring.
since, Mrs. Ireland.
Really?
She ran that. She ran the National Honor Society.
Right, there's a different person doing that now.
So do the Junior National Honor Society students help other students during their lunch period?
Yes. Not only in the 4th and 5th grade, they also help, like, they have peer tutoring, so 8th grade kids to work with 8th grade kids. And I know the 7th, 8th grade math teachers set up like specific days, like Tuesday, Thursday.
That's what we did.
Is that they have it, and, you know, it's open to them.
Well, that's good for the middle school, but the elementary schools, they have homework too.
That's true.
You know, so I mean, that would be good for a high school kid that knows basic addition, subtraction, things of that sort, to volunteer their time. Just kids is there anyway.
Basically, the person who's in charge of honor society.
Oh, I know they're always asking for hours and they would love to do it.
Is there
It has to be supervised, though,
policy in the regional
that's-
school board as far as high school seniors having to do service work? Is it a graduation?
It's not a graduation requirement, it's a requirement though for Interact, for Key Club, and for National Honor Society to give, so that's why I thought they were still doing it. And I can name 10 senior girls who have early out that would love to do it.
Yes, yes.
You know,
But they have to be supervised, that's the problem. Like,
That's
I
the
would
problem.
just leave, and Mrs. Geyer used to come and stay with them. She would come
Right,
after
right,
school and sit
right,
there with them.
okay.
So we would have to find a way to, like,
How do you facilitate it, correct?
to facilitate.
So we need an
that.
adult volunteer is what I hear.
Not
Does
necessarily.
it have to be a paid individual or something like that?
Not necessarily.
Yes,
Get
yes.
their background checks and everything.
Background checks and all that. Yeah, but there's definitely,
Volunteer.
there's definitely a hierarchy that has to be
Yeah.
followed.
Somebody
Right.
who has had the criminal history background check has to oversee it because then those high school students are with younger.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to put the high school students in that position.
At risk.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, but we can look into how to do a program like that.
The kids loved it. I mean, I think more, I used to send second graders who struggled. And I think it was more a self-esteem builder than anything else, that these high school kids came and they worked with the same one every week. And I don't know how much it really helped them grow because they only came once a week and they only came for like maybe.
But self-esteem is important
But
too.
the
Self-esteem
self-esteem
is
that they were
important.
picked to go to that, they just loved that. There was never a question about, no, you know how older kids don't want to stay after school? These kids loved it. They loved it.
Well, as is the library offers during the summer reading program with buddies. And it's all with high school kids.
Mhm.
So when you go to Haddon Township High School, you walk in and they actually have likes and they take the older kids fill out a questionnaire and the younger kids, so you know, Christopher's was Pokemon and
Mhm.
they pair them who
Mhm.
likes basketball with
interested, right.
basketball and they would read together.
Mhm.
And it was cool because they chose like books that they enjoyed
Mhm.
reading, and they would share read. One took a page, the other took a page, but it was just, it's somebody different.
Right.
It's something different.
Right, it was something different, and everybody didn't get to go, and they got to go, and they just loved it. They loved being the ones selected. It was very good.
In the beginning of the year, it's easy to talk to advisor, so if you guys wanted to talk and let me know, I could, because I'm an advisor, we have a meeting on September 5th. So.
Sounds good. All right. Now we're at the Bingham and Downing report. So, do you wanna, I'll give you this and you can click through.
Okay.
We're ready.
Do I want the bottom one then?
Oh, I'm sorry. It's the side, it's the one on the right side.
Right side, okay. Okay, we had two goals for Bingham and Downing. One was for math facts, and one was for writing. And we're gonna keep the same two this year because we need to constantly work on that. And the teachers picked what percentage they thought they could get proficiency in. And you will see that for the most part, the addition was good, but we didn't get the subtraction. We did not get the subtraction. Now the new standards, see, Math facts is a big weakness of the day It doesn't really,
I agree.
it doesn't really teach it. The new standards insist upon this, and this is what they want, in kindergarten, the new standards want them to be fluent to 5, they want them to work with intent to be fluent to 5, and in first grade, they want them to be fluent to 10, second to 20, and then the third grade, they want them at the multiplication tables, all right? So what I did is I showed you, I considered 80% mastery. I thought if they got an 80 on the test, they kind of had mastery, all right? So in kindergarten, we did great with addition. 78%, we said 65, we got 78. 86 of them actually passed it. Only 13 in all the kindergarten didn't pass it. That was the addition. Where do you see the subtraction? Not that good.
I'm sorry, I just had a hard time, you don't have to go back. Could you explain this chart
Oh,
to me?
okay.
What does that 100 mean?
That's 46 kids got 100 on the test.
Oh, okay,
All right?
that's what I didn't.
90 to 99,
Okay.
12 kids, 80 to 89, 8 kids. So I figured those are the kids that mastered it, all right? Then 70, 79, they also passed it, all right? So that's
But-
the 86%.
I see.
13 were
I see.
lower than
Thank you.
70, so 13 didn't make it.
Okay.
Okay, so then with the subtraction, it was a much more difficult concept for kindergartners. All right, the kindergarten teachers are going to have to figure out a way, because they're supposed to have them fluent to 5, and they obviously got the addition, but they did not get the subtraction.
And those are all in preparation of the Common Core State Standards,
Yes.
which the kindergarten has implemented in mathematics already.
Right.
Now, these were tested through.
They just made up. They did them. Actually, I believe
Time tests?
They verbal. No, the kindergarten they verbally tested. The
Okay.
other kids they did time tests.
Gotcha.
But the kindergarten actually, it was a verbal test. This is first grade. 69. We wanted 70% to master it. 69% mastered it. 75% passed it. It could be stronger. Subtraction is terrible. Terrible. All right. So this is going to be we're going to make a real push this year on the subtraction.
And that was 1 to 10, correct? First grade, if you're kindergarten's 1 to 5, and then, or 0 to 5, and then it jumps up.
First grade to 10.
Yeah, first grade's supposed to know it's 10.
To 10.
All right. Now second grade, great. So in a lot of ways, if we get them there by second grade, then we're good. You know, I mean, like as long as they're mastered to 20. So even though they might not have gotten it in kindergarten, they might not have gotten it first, they definitely seem to have it. And that's the special ed and everybody are in here. Remember, there's 12 special ed kids in there, so it's pretty good.
I would have to wonder what school districts that have preschool and those that have full-time preschool, how those kids
Yes.
will score in kindergarten and first grade.
Exactly.
And then this is the subtraction, which is it met goal. All right, it's not as strong as the addition, but it met
Now,
goal.
was the goal 80% here?
The goal was 70%.
70%.
Yeah, so they met their goal.
So,
Quick question, are the first graders doing the timed tests like the second graders were? Because my son was in second grade last year, and I can tell you, his teacher, every single day, was doing addition, subtraction, lines, up and down.
Yeah, the first grader also.
They're doing the same thing,
Yeah.
there's no difference in the way they were teaching?
I don't think so, no. Kindergarten definitely different. First grade, I don't think so. I don't think they did it the same way.
Yeah, kindergarten had time tests too. They didn't have to.
You know, she's talking, but no, what she's talking about is our homework last year was at least twice a week, I saw those sheets.
Right.
We didn't have them in first grade.
Right.
They didn't have the goal in first grade. The goal was last year.
We just made this.
Oh,
They just made
okay.
a goal.
Oh, okay.
So that
No, I
was
thought that's what she was
after
asking. She's talking
And
about
they
those.
may have done it
First grade, do the
class
same as
not
second
Oh,
grade, right?
okay.
See the difference
Yeah.
and you can't compare it to your son's first grade year
Right.
versus his second grade year, because last year was the only year, the first year.
That's, okay.
So the first graders did do the same exact thing with.
I think they did. I don't think they did at the beginning of the year, because I don't think that you can really do that with kids that early. But I think by the end of the year, they had them doing it.
And once again, I have to wonder, does it take till second grade to catch up with such a small percentage of our students going to preschool?
Well, I think it's also developmental.
It is developmental.
Well, that's what the
But
kindergarten
the goal
people
was
say.
developmental.
They say
Yeah,
developmentally,
It's too
they
abstract.
don't
It's too
really
abstract.
understand
It's very hard.
subtraction. So I think ultimately what they're going to have to do is just like we did. They're going to have to memorize them. Even though they misunderstand them, they're just going to have to memorize them. And then ultimately
That's
they'll
what the line
understand.
Yes, exactly.
They memorize what it is.
Okay, then the multiplication. The multiplication, the third grade love it. It's like something new, they're all excited. They love it, and you can tell. 98% of them, and we had a lot of low kids in third grade, we really did, but 98% of them passed the multiplication to 100, you know, up to the 10 times. Okay. But they just love multiplication, they're so excited about it, something new. Now this year we have the new standards, we have to do division as well, which we didn't used to have to do, and a lot more fraction work, so it's gonna be interesting third grade. Okay, now the writing goals. We've been pushing them up each year. We started out with kindergarten 65, we're now up to 75%. See, these are different rubrics that we use. The trophy series had these early developing, early independent, and then an independent rubric, and then in third grade, like the kind of rubric you would use for the New Jersey Ask. So we wanted the kindergarten to be at 75% and the other grades to be at 80.
I have a question.
Yes.
How did the third grade do in subtraction?
They didn't have a subtraction test because multiplication is what the standards are asking them to do. We're assuming that they're going to have addition and subtraction by second grade, and then so we didn't. Although the teachers probably tested them, it was not part of our goal.
Okay.
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 But I get where you're coming from because
because it's bad. It's not bad. It's not where you want it. It's not where you want it. It's not where you want it. So then it didn't go away.
no, but I believe it
Hopefully it
continued.
just caught up.
I believe the first half of third grade, they continued to time test the addition and subtraction.
Okay.
Then they started to do the multiplication. Right. So these are the writing goals, and kindergarten, we wanted them 75, we got 79, they met the goal. First grade, they were at 87, so that was really good, they met the goal. Second grade's our weakness, 66%. Now, I really do kind of have 3 rookies in second grade, so I've been working with the third grade up until now, so starting this year, I'm going to work. I believe the third grade should know what they're doing at this point. I'm going to start working with the second grade, because I do believe they're good teachers, but they just might not know exactly what they need to do to get the kids where they need to be. Third grade, looks like they didn't pass it. They're supposed to be at 80, but they're at 79% with 7 special education students, so I thought that was pretty good. I mean,
Who's our third grade teachers? Again, who's our third grade teachers?
well, we have 4 third grade teachers.
Right.
Now, last year, we had Mrs. Hurd who retired, and Mrs. Seconder, and then we have Duncan and Clements who were in the inclusion room, and Miss White Scarlet. They're the
Who's
4.
inclusion as well, right?
This year she'll be inclusion. Last year she was not. This year she will be. She won't have another teacher, she'll have a full-time aide. So that was the writing results. Now this is the basic skills analysis in language arts. We had actually 7 children in the Tier 3 intensive in grade 1, but 2 we didn't have them in September, so I couldn't really include them in the growth thing because I didn't have the beginning score. They moved in children. So the average map growth was 14.2 points, and the mean growth is 11.7. So they did better than the mean. Now you're going to see as the grades go up, that goes down. All right. The first grade did better than the mean, and the Tier 2 went up 13.4 points.
So that's your data to take a look at the, how effective those interventions are at that grade level. With
First grade.
one way to tell.
Yeah, first grade, we really felt pretty good about that. There were 18 kids in that Tier 2. Some of them were taught by Ms. Pulcinella, the ones at Bingham, and the ones at Downing were taught by Mrs. Lyle, and the growth was 13.4 when the mean is 11.7. Second grade, there were 9 kids in the Tier 3, and the average was 9-point growth, which again is pretty good when you consider they're the most intensive kids. So I thought that was pretty good. Now they're nowhere near where they're supposed to be. Trust me, I mean, like their scores are way low, but their growth was there. I mean, they started here and they grew. Maybe they belong here. They're still way behind. They'll still be probably in intensive again next year, but they had a good growth thing. The Tier 2s aren't as far behind. 15 of them had an average of 7-point growth. Third grade, we had 10 intensive kids. We had a lot of little kids. These are not special ed kids. These are in addition to the special ed. We had 7 special ed and we had 10 intensive children between Bingham and Downing. And they only averaged a 2-point growth, which kind of correlates with what you're going to see in the New Jersey S results.
So everybody understands about how you can have students that are that low but not special education. One of the reasons, one of the ways that a student becomes eligible for an IEP and under IDEA is if there is a discrepancy between their cognitive ability and their performance. So if their cognitive ability doesn't demonstrate that they should be performing higher, they're still our children, but they don't qualify under IDEA as eligible, unless they're very low and they need special accommodations, but that's a whole different ballgame. But it's...
And like one of these students was referred and was not able to be classified because even though she was performing well below grade level, for her ability level, she was performing where she should be. So we have her, you know, she'll move on to 4th grade and she'll be dealt with in a similar way that we dealt. Another child we wanted to refer and the parent didn't want to go that way. So,
Right, so these are still children that are in basic skills programs, teachers not special.
in what we're calling RTI at this
Right.
point. Yeah.
Right.
And then the strategic kids, there were 12 of them and they grew 6.6 points average. So some of them a lot more, some of them less. The math, I could put it all on one slide because we don't have tiers. And we had really good growth in the math. 19 grade 1s, the average grade was 20.8 points when the mean growth was 13.3. And 13, and in every, except for 3rd grade, in every case, higher than the mean. And 3rd grade, pretty close.
So this, the testing, rating, I might be choosing the wrong word. This was done off of the teachers testing them.
No,
for
this was done from the math test.
From the math test.
This is the math test, yeah.
Okay.
Because they give them that writ, I looked all over the
Sorry,
place to
I
figure
wasn't
out
sure what it was.
writ meant, you know, and I couldn't find it in any of the literature, but it's a scale that they developed
It's a weighted scale.
to put the kids on a continuum that goes all the way from kindergarten to 12th grade. So each year they're supposed to be at a different RIT level, all right, and you see their growth by how many RIT points they gain. And so that's what I was showing. This was math test, okay? I'm going to show you, this is the New Jersey Ask, which is really pretty, 57% proficient.
How many students took this test?
I should know that, and I,
About 100, can we say?
No.
More like 80.
between 80 and 90.
Okay. So nobody was advanced proficient
No,
at
and
all?
that's not unusual in language arts. Believe it or not, when the 4th grade was, many years ago, they brought people in to figure out how this would work out. And I was on that committee. And when the work was done, such a small percentage across the state ever achieved advanced proficient. I mean, in years that we've been giving these tests, there's only been a handful of kids through years in 3rd grade was built off of the 4th grade test that have ever achieved advanced proficient.
And there was only one special ed student taking this
No,
test?
one
There were
passed.
7, excuse me.
There were 7 special ed and one of them passed it. But that student is not learning disabled. That student has a health issue.
Oh, their health impairment or
Yeah,
something.
so she does not have a learning disability. She's special ed because of her health issues.
Okay.
All right, so she passed it, she was the honors.
I took that and added it to your slides and eliminated your special ed slide. So
Oh,
that's a
okay,
little
all right,
tweak
because
that
I did have a
did,
special ed,
to tell
side.
you.
That was good. I didn't remember doing that.
It matched up with what Mr.
Okay,
Minister.
yeah, I wanted to just tell you that only one of them.
So, out of, if we were to categorize ourselves with other district factor group B school districts, where are we in relationship to, I think Belmar's is?
We don't know yet. That's what we'll get September 10th. We didn't get that report yet.
Okay.
All we got was the kid's name with math, reading, and proficient and non-proficient. That's all, and the accountable score points. That's
So,
all we got. We
is
didn't get
prof-
any
Is
analysis.
proficient though, like,
They have to get 200 to be proficient. They have to get 250 to be advanced proficient. Anything under 200 is partially proficient.
so if we were to say, and I'm not holding me to this, I'm just using it for where I'm trying to ask. If we were to look, and even though it's a different test, I understand that. but when we look at like MAP testing and we figure out that there's, at what point is it low? Is it like saying we did good in addition and poorly in subtraction? So the subtraction portion is the area that brings you down, and is proficient
See, in math,
versus not proficient, how detrimental is that gap of proficient to non-proficient?
one of the problems with this test is they're gonna base a whole lot on it, but they don't give you much to work with. They really don't. I mean, they give you clusters, so we'll see cluster scores when we get this next report. So we'll know whether it was numbers and operations or geometry or measurement. Like they'll give you some results in clusters, but not which kids. I mean, it's very difficult to read. It's very difficult to get a lot of really good material out of the New Jersey S, which is one of the reasons why we went to having that, because it gives more information.
So in Common Core, when this test occurs, again next year for 3rd grade, Common Core is going to be detrimental to this test, or is this test aligned to Common Core?
Nancy thinks it's going to be this year it's going to be a hybrid, because they won't have, Park is the new test, and that's going to be not 13, but 14. So when Park comes out, P-A-R-C-C, I don't know what it's proficiency. I guess proficiency.
So S will go away and Park will come in?
Will you tell me I need my acronym next year?
Yeah, New Jersey S goes away, Park comes in, that's going to be totally aligned to the new standards.
Right.
So this year, we're going to be trying the best we can to teach the new standards, but we're going to be tested partially on the old standards.
So, and it was a perfect segue to actually where I'm gonna get you guys at the end, because how do we look at growth on the New Jersey Ask, and how do we even really measure the New Jersey Ask? Because one of the main things we're doing, because we have to do it, is unpacking the new Common Core standards and aligning our instruction to the new Common Core standards. And then this test that they give in the spring, because they have to give a test, is gonna be a hybrid, like a 50-50 of old standards and new standards, and we've worked to teach the new standards. So the last thing I wanna do, we have to do what's morally important for children, but everybody's gonna be going crazy over how do you test us on stuff as we're in the middle of trying to, I think they should give us a
And
sabbatical year.
the other question is going to be, I know Mrs. Strong has been attending a lot of meetings about the new math standards over the summer, and one of the women that works on test development, her name's Sarah Renninger, and she was here as one of our student teachers. She was the person that came out from the college. So we got kind of friendly with her, and she's done some math workshops for us. Corky was asking her about this one question on the test. It was one of the long questions that they had to write out. That really was from the new standards and not from the old standards. And she was saying the teachers weren't ready for this, none of the kids knew what to do with it. And she said, well, that didn't count. That was a field test item. So you don't know when you take the test either which of the questions are field test items and which of the questions are legitimately going to count. So maybe a lot of
I know when I'm a proctor at a high school.
That's unfair to
It's very.
So will the MAP align to Common Core?
Not this year. The Park will.
No, but will the MAP testing? Because
Math.
MAP.
Oh, map testing.
MAP testing
Nancy
will
said
align
they
to
have
Common
a
Core?
Common Core.
Yes, that's what we're gonna be.
So we're going to put that in, but that's also going to take some time for us, because if we give that to them at the beginning of the school year, none of them have really had the Common Core yet. So that's going to probably be a disaster this year too. So this is going to be this coming year is going to be a very crazy year for testing.
And it's
a real
because
transition.
everything's in flux right now. So, all right, so that's my bad news. The better news is the math, because we had 75% of them proficient, because 22 were advanced and 53 were proficient, 25 weren't, and 4 of the special ed kids passed it. So, because many times our special ed kids are not disabled when it comes to math.
It's the other side of the brain.
It's a hard thing to explain, but it's sometimes these are really smart kids who just have a reading disability. And see, we're allowed to read the math test to them. We're allowed to read the reading test to them too, except for the reading passages. Well, guess what?
Just the directions.
If they can't read the reading passages, it doesn't help that you can read them the questions, So, it's certainly better than just putting them out there on their own, but it's it really definitely helps special ed kids that we can read from the math. So that's the grade 3 math. And then the basic skill, the tier 3, 10 students took it on the ones proficient. So we had the same results from our tier 3 as we did from our special ed. And tier 2, kind of the same too, about half of them were proficient, which is probably not even as good as this special ed. But I'm telling you, there's a whole lot of kids, and I was telling Mark that, come to Blue Pretty, there's a lot of, they work hard, they do their best, they just have a difficult time. So they need some, that's why I think this process is going to be jumping into the LOI so we can see what we can do. Basic skill math, 20 students, 6 proficient. So that's not great either.
Yeah, but that's not awful, you know. That's still 6 students without that basic skills help that probably would not have been proficient.
Exactly.
So,
And what would it have looked like if we had more?
what do you say?
Help. That won't help.
If we had more, maybe we could have doubled that.
Right.
But 6 is still good.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, see what
Yeah.
our budget. Right.
Then I wanted to show you the Ruby Reach too, because this was where there was a little bit of better news. Like, this was a test that came with the Ruby series, and we're not going to use it this year because we're going to do this one-on-one level, and it kind of did the same thing, except it was, again, computer generated, and for some children that doesn't really work because they like to click through it. But they did do better on this. Like, we were pretty pleased when we saw the results of this. The average score in the beginning of the year for the special ed kids was 96. The average score at the end was 111. So they gained generally 15 points over the course of the year, which is pretty significant. And a number of the special ed kids, even some of the ones that failed everything else, including Biggles, ended up being, if it was anywhere on the 3rd grade level, they considered them on level, and some of those children ended up on level. We had a little girl in the, she's in not in the special ed, she's in the tier program, who went from below level at the beginning of the year to advanced level at the end of the year. But I think she's a little girl that really just doesn't have any kind of disability. She's not slow. She just doesn't have any real support at home. You know, and when Mrs. DeGiulio got a hold of her, she just bought everything that had to say. So this was the tier 3. Their average score was 104 at the beginning of the year, 114.8. So they gained 10 points, which wasn't as much as the special ed, interestingly. And then the tier 2 had 113 at the beginning of the year, 125 at the end. So they gained 12 points. So I was fairly happy with what they did with that and how many of them pushed into the on-level groups. And this was my HIB cases. You received all these, so you know there were many that came through, but none of them were founded. A lot of them were keyboard. So you really have a hard time getting a 5-year-old to have the intention of bullying, you know. So we investigated all of them carefully, and did everything you're supposed to do, but we didn't, in the elementary, we didn't have any founded cases.
Was Ricky done for the average, was that point done for the average
Yes, it
student?
was, and
what was
again,
their gain?
I don't have that, I didn't figure it out, but,
No,
but generally speaking, they did well.
so their gain would have been more than 15 points?
Might have been, I could figure
Okay.
that out, I could easily figure that out. Okay, the suspension report, generally speaking, in the elementary school, I don't use suspension much at all. I only use it if I'm motivated in a way to, like if I need to get the parents in and make an issue of something that's happening. That's when I use it, when I want the parents to realize the seriousness. And a lot of times I'll just call and tell them to come and get the child, and then I let them bring them back the next day. I mean, I don't suspend them for 2 days or anything like that. I just make them come and take them home. And so I had 2 cases at Bingham and 1 at Downing. The one of the 2 at Bingham was a special needs child. The other 2 were not. The one at Downing was not, and the other one at Bingham was not. Ironically, 1 boy, 2 girls. And retentions, we retained 3 children at Bingham for growth. They were very, very young. The parents were kind of, one parent was one of her child retained, and the other 2 we thought we were good in the parent. Okay, and at Downing we retained 2, but we also classified them and sent them over to Bingham, and they're going to be in that special class with Mary Wilson next year.
So, but they're gonna redo kindergarten.
They're going to we felt, and the parents felt they needed to redo kindergarten with the special intervention.
So they'll go into that new,
Into
they're
one.
part of that 7.
Yes.
You told me there was 7.
Yes. And we have a one grade 1, a little guy came from Mexico and is in no way ready to move on, so he's going to stay in grade 1 for 1 more year. And that's the end of it.
Your retention's in kindergarten, male or female?
The 3 are all male in Bingham, and in kindergarten, the 2 are male, 5 male, no female, and the little boy is in first grade also male.
I was just saying, there's your statistical standing.
You know, girls are much more ready. They are ready. They're just more ready.
That's right.
Even young girls, like girls who have birthdays all the way when stuff talk to
Yeah, I was
a
a
lot of
September
them are fine, you know. But a lot of times those little guys, when they're that young, have a really hard time. So, yeah, all boys. I didn't think about that, but I know they are. So, Krista, I. Does anybody have any questions? Any other questions?
Do we want to keep going with a little break?
Take a little break?
I know you close retreats over those days. That's all.
Yeah, can we take a 10-minute recess, please?
That'd be great.
Everybody,
All right,
everybody
thank
in
you.
the audience is welcome.
Yes, feel free.
Thank you.
Of course, the monkey bread probably is now gone.
Well, it's a nice mouse.
All right, Rob and I are going to kind of tag team some of this, so I'm going to start us off just talking about some of the goals we talked about last year that we've looked at after analysis throughout the year, as well as New Jersey asking that Rob's going to take over, and I'll pick it back up again with some of the other reports that we did. Okay. Our main goal, well, one of our main goals was to improve basic skills, and that's going to be our thing, as you haven't heard a theme. Okay, the entire day is basic skills. In this building, I'm not sure if you know how basic skills work. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But our goal was to prepare students identified needing basic skills to strengthen these skills in areas of reading and math. All right. And the objective by the end of this school year was to increase the overall RIT score by at least 10%. Now that is a pretty lofty goal, okay? Because you're talking, you know, these are the kids that really need the help. But you know, what's that saying? Shoot for the moon, maybe the star, one of those types of things. And we did see a lot of improvements in some areas, but we still, you know, we need a lot of areas for improvement. Now, you're not going to read that, but I'm just going to basically tell you what it says. In this school, students in grades 4 and 5, they get a minimum of 90 minutes a week in basic skills that they're identified. And that's normally what it's been since we didn't have a full-time basic skills teacher. The last couple of years we've had Miss Lyle here, she was here 2.5 days a week, 3 days a week, and she would pull kids out for small group instruction. Okay. But we didn't have anybody in writing, and we didn't have anybody in mathematics. Okay. So what we do in this building is we use our middle school teachers when they don't have, let's say, 7th grade language arts class. They go into a 4th and 5th grade classroom at least 2 times a week to provide basic skills instruction. Okay. Sometimes if there's more basic skills kids in a certain homeroom, they might go in 3 or 4 times a week, depending on what they see. It's not so much pull out, it's more push in. Where if they're doing their reading circles, and Nancy was my basic skills teacher, Nancy might take group B and work with that group during that 90-minute block, or during that 90 minutes a week, whatever it is. There's also an advisory period in the 4th and 5th grade where the homeroom teachers would work on things, identify those skills in the areas to help.
Okay, Mark, to stop you there.
Yep.
When they go into these classrooms, who is planning the lessons that are provided for these children? Is it the person going into the classroom?
The homeroom teacher will plan with the basic skills teacher when they can find time. That's one of our obstacles that we had, because they don't have, now in this school we're fortunate enough, I built in common planning time at least once a week in grades 4 through 8. So if, you know, Janet, Marie, and I are all 3rd grade teachers, Tuesday, 3rd period, we know we're meeting every Tuesday, 3rd period for common planning time. We have that throughout the building in grades 4 through 8. But if Nancy was a 7th grade language arts teacher, her prep time necessarily doesn't line up with our prep time here. So it's difficult to get on board. So what happens a lot of times, I know we have teachers go out to lunch, where teachers have lunch in their classroom, where they use their, whatever they do, they might meet then, they meet after school. When you come in tomorrow, here's what we're doing. And some of our teachers have done a good job utilizing those people, and they know, hey, I know when I'm going to that 4th grade classroom, Mr. Buckheim has something to do with specifically with my kids and what they need help with, for their reading comprehension, analyzing, whatever it might be during that period of time.
Okay, so there are formalized lesson plans made for these basic skills children, are my questions. That's my question.
I wouldn't say it's formalized, but I'm checking them on a weekly basis with their lesson plans, but there are activities for them to
Okay.
do.
The other thing about that is that we have some of our teachers who are in middle school grades are also trained in reading interventions, like we have some teachers trained in Wilson
Yeah.
as well, so some of you have been able to assign those teachers.
Absolutely, like Mrs. Carson, who teaches 6th grade language arts literacy block, for her advisory group, she has a group where she does the Wilson program with those kids every single day, which they have to have every single day because it's part of that program. And those kids are really low level. You got a kid who's in 7th or 8th grade that's on a 2nd or 3rd grade reading level. So that's what she's working with. Now, students in the middle school, they're also supported 2 periods a week by middle school staff. For instance, if we have an 8th grade math teacher, let's say it's Mrs. Ryan, during those times where she's not teaching 8th grade math, she might go in to support Mrs. Newhart's basic skills students, who Mrs. Newhart teaches 7th grade. And that might be 2 or 3 times a week as well. But we don't have technically what Ms. Gallagher has in this building. Since I've been here, I don't think we've ever
Never had.
Never had that.
No.
I mean, when I taught here, I taught 8th grade science, I taught 6th grade math, I taught 4th and 5th grade basic skills and everything as well during those periods. It's not something we've ever seen there. And that's what we'll talk about. We shuffled the cards around, but we had a recent retirement. We were able to have a little more flexibility with that. Basic skills means we still do in the beginning of the school year. In September, obviously one of those first couple in-service days, and then additional meetings are scheduled if we need it with those, when needed with those kids. We meet with the teachers, we meet with the guidance counselors, if the kids really need help, what are we doing for them? Now, there was an increase in student achievement identified at all grade levels in grades 4 to 8. However, the goal of 10% increase for basic skills students was not evident. All student data is analyzed by administration as well as the faculty during grade level meetings and professional development days. For instance, some of those half-day professional and service days we have throughout the year, we do map analysis. I know Marie's school does the same thing. From those fall map scores, we have the board been trying like seeing maps and what all the information we can give them. I mean, it spits out more information than you could possibly.
Early on, we probably haven't.
I think it hasn't been probably for a couple of years, but there's like the day card continuum and all these things they give, and for each kid, it'll give you where they, what are they lacking? Is it number sense and math? Is it reading comprehension and reading? Where are they lacking in those skills? And it'll give them activities for those students to do. Now, when are they going to do them? It could be during basic skill time, it could be during an additional homework assignment, or whatever type of things they can do. For that, again, we don't have anybody, haven't had anybody to really follow through and organize that the way we'd like, because we don't have any interventionalists, we don't have any basic skills teachers to kind of take that over. So it's up to those individual basic skills teachers, along with teaching 4 or 5 classes a day in their regular subject area to meet those needs for the basic skills kids. Okay. Any questions so far?
So if that's the case, and technically there are there 12 basic skills coming from 3rd grade to 4th grade, Ms. Gallagher?
Oh, no, more than that. There's 10 intensive.
Okay.
There's 10 intensive, and then I think there were 18.
Yeah, there's about 30.
Yeah.
So 30 new kids will come to 4th grade this year.
Yep.
How does that, and they go from having a lot of help to having minimal help, how does that leave them floundering?
It does leave them floundering.
How does that affect their?
It impacts them a lot because we never had that resource until this year. Okay, now we're going to have Ms. Grasso as well as Ms. Karaska as our basic skills instructors. And 4th and 5th, we're going to start 4th and 5th concentrate. That's where we really need the help. Because like you said, they're coming over here, where they're getting a lot of support, and it's like then we're cutting the rope here and we're letting them kind of fly out in the wind a little bit. Not that we didn't service them before, but I just don't think we serviced them properly. And you'll see in some of those scores. Okay? And this is what we'll talk about. This slide, no, sorry. Again, kids are given the MAP test in the fall. I think this year we took it in late September, early October, Marie? I think
We started at the last week of September.
Yeah, we got it done pretty quickly.
Yeah.
You know, in fourth grade, I'm not gonna insult your intelligence, you go all three up there. The fall average, Rick, was 204. When they hit the spring, it was about 211, so that's an increase of 6.8%. The norm average, which they compared against the rest of the people taking the MAP, was 212. So we're almost getting there in the spring to that norm average. And if you look down the list, we're almost getting there in a lot of the grade levels. Okay? Our trouble spots right now, specifically, as you can see, the 7th grade is an area we really need to focus on, and we've tried to, I mean, Maria will probably back me up on this one, but we've tracked this group since they've had standardized testing and had everything, and they have not performed well on standardized tests, you know, since 3rd grade. But they also have not performed, we hate to look at just standardized testing, they haven't performed the way we'd like them to perform in everyday, day-to-day activities in school.
Just a tough group.
I don't know what it is.
Tough group.
I can't tell you this is a tough group because I sat in my board meeting last night, so I'm on the board in Merchantville, and I watched our same presentation, and our troubled areas in Merchantville were 4th and 7th grade. So I don't know what happened in math. I don't know what happened that year, the water supply, I don't know what was going on, but in their 7th grade also, in my town, it's the same thing, but, you know, that's a really troubled area that we're looking at that time. So there you can see the kind of growth that we had there. There is growth. The only, you know, we hit the 8th grade. There was no growth in reading. It actually took a minus. I can't tell you why that happened.
And when was the spring test for 8th graders?
I'd say they did that in March.
March.
Yeah.
It was early on this year, and the reason, for 2 reasons we did March testing. First of all, if you have it much later, you start bumping into the New Jersey Ask. The other thing is it really assists our special education students with their annuals. So we debate every year exactly when to have it, and this year March was the best time. So one little, you know, important thing, one little commercial on this should be, while our norm averages, I think they're depressed by the time of year that the test is taken. So
We would love to give it in May.
Right.
Because there's 2 more months of instruction.
Right, but that's when the New Jersey Ask is.
But I mean, I'm thinking that's maybe what happened with 8th grade reading. They are, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they have senioritis.
That's right, yeah.
They're done.
Wouldn't that pick up in the fall?
Pardon?
Doesn't that pick up in the fall of the following year? So if 7th grade math was 1.8, what they learned between April and September, in essence, should be accounted for in fall of 8th grade.
If you looked at the 1-year growth, yes.
Right,
that would-
yes.
Full year growth.
The other interesting thing about it is even though there looks like there's a fall off, they're above the norm average.
Exactly.
And they're the only group really that did very well on the New Jersey Ask.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's really
Right.
not much to worry about.
Right, right. So you're right. That's the thing. I mean, they started out above the norm average for spring, and they took it in March. So that's the strongest grade level we have in the school, as it has always been. And what does that do? It says, you know, they really do the best on the New Jersey Ask. Is that some kind of a fluke? No, we really say that the most important, we have to grade our students all along, but the most important grade to make sure that they're going to transition to high school is 8th grade. Have we done our job? And this also demonstrates that, yeah, we're doing our job. We're getting there for sure. A little lower in reading than we'd like, but for this particular group.
And that
But
too-
you wanted 10 here.
What's that?
You wanted a 10% all the way down.
10%.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, here's where, you know, we're not gonna hide anything here. Our basic skills, we did not perform, we didn't hit our goal. Sometimes we didn't come close. Okay, but you do see, like, if you look at individual breakdowns, some of the basic skills kids, I'll give you an average. Let's say they got a 186 in the fall. Some of those kids jumped up to like a, you know, 200 or something. They did really well, or 205. But then you had other kids,
But negative schools.
they were negative scores. They were 196, now they're 197. So you understand how everything balances out. Okay? But let's just take, we'll take 4th grade language arts literacy. Number of basic skills student identified, we had 14. 2 of those students, you know, hit the 10% mark. But the average RIT growth for those kids was 8 points. So that's pretty good. And you're looking at, you know, we could have said, oh, we'll go 5 points. You know, I think we did that one year, we did 5 points. Oh yeah, we hit that goal, that's great. But what we realized was that goal was maybe not as high as it should have been. So let's set the bar high. I think 8 points growth for that group is pretty good. Now that did not correlate to New Jersey S scores, which Rob will show you, where those kids in 4th grade did not perform well this year. And we've been breaking down some of those stats in the last couple of weeks, and you know, they're not good. We'll get a better indication of why they weren't good coming up September 10th when those scores come out. And again, like 6th grade language arts, excellent average RIT growth for that group of kids, and you'll see from 5th grade scores to 6th grade scores in New Jersey S, those kids did really well in 6th grade. I mean, for what?
Keeping in mind too, to get a 10% increase, you're talking about 15 or plus more points that you have to score in difference. So that is significant. But one number, a couple of numbers that are not on there. For example, in 4th grade, just the percent increase was 57% of the students did make an increase. Whether that was 1 to 8 points, but they made an increase. So that is something to point out. And Mark had already pointed out in 8th grade, that was our least amount of increase, and that was 46% of our students. But you know, we are making progress. We are going in the right direction.
And this is making progress without any, I'd say, full-time person. Now what we've been able to do is create 2 full-time positions where we're having those interventions, having those basic. Like this year, Ms. Grasso is going to see kids the way we crafted her schedule. She'll see in 4th and 5th grade, she'll go into classrooms at each homeroom at least 3 times a week. For 45, she'll have 45 minutes to pull those kids. So if I was a struggling reader and I needed help, she'll be pulling me 3 times a week at least. That's not including advisory time and other parts of the schedule where she can pull those kids. So we're hoping, if you saw Marie's school, like, yeah, her tier 2 kids or whatever, yeah, a 20-point increase because she had somebody with them, constantly working with them. We haven't had that opportunity. We're going to kind of pick some of the things she's been doing. We're sending people over to work with Jenna to get some of those ideas of what exactly are you doing? Because what we're doing didn't work with 10 people doing the job that you were doing. Now we have 2 people doing that job, and hopefully we can increase those scores a little bit.
And another thing to point out, like for example, you see 6th grade language arts, that 6.1 RIT growth, that was the group that was working with Barb, with flexible grouping, things like that. Like she really worked, that group took on to some of the skills that she had to offer, and you can see that they made a significant gain as well. To demonstrate how this data pushes programmatic changes, we know that we have identified that once we identify these basic skills kids, we need to keep an eye on them, a closer eye on them. We need to have more conversations with the teachers in regards to what is their progress. Maybe not wait until there is the MAP scores, MAP testing in the spring. We have to make sure that we are staying on top of them throughout the periods of time throughout the school year. So yes, we do lack some manpower in regards to having the instruction being presented to these students, but we have to make up with you know, for our lacks with administrative responses, looking at what is going on with these students and making sure that we're in communication with the teachers all the time.
So this 4th grade class coming in, number-wise, will have similar, will have the largest group of children out of all of these grades.
So the 4th and 5th grade this year coming up for 12, 13, they have their work cut out for them.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like they really have a difficult task ahead of them. And I was just looking before I came in this morning, just looking at how many kids they're going to have to service. It's
the one advantage with the 4th grade is there's really no major behavior issues. The current 4th grade there were, you know, so.
You never know who's moving in.
That's true. You don't.
Of the knowns.
But they're very sweet. They're
Of the
sweet kids.
knowns, we're good.
total number of students, BSI students proficient in NJS, I'll let Mr. Mungo talk a little bit then, so you broke down these numbers.
Basically, we tracked the students that were identified as basic skills, and we looked at their NJS scores, and there's the proof right there. It kind of correlates with some of the numbers you saw with Marie's presentation. Fourth grade, once you see the New Jersey ASK scores, you'll see that that is an area of need we have already identified. Going to what Amy just said about the students transitioning from all of this help to a new situation, a new school, there's something to be said about that, because looking at the scores we're about to look at, you'll see that obviously there were some contributors to their low scoring, and maybe that is a piece that we have to look at, that transitional piece from third grade to fourth grade, to provide extra support for those students, because it's a transitional year. So we did have some success again. Sixth grade, looking at that, language arts, well, we had 21 of the students pass the New Jersey ASK. So that was a real big plus for us. So one of the things that we know that we're going to do is we're going to have conversations with the sixth grade teachers. And they've already piloted the level grouping. So we're going to utilize them to share that with other teachers, so we can, you know, use the same model that they are using, because they have already developed a model of success. So the numbers speak for themselves. Again, you see language arts in eighth grade, where we did take a hit with the MAP scores, but you see that 13 of those basic skills students still passed that test. So that's basically self-explanatory.
Any questions going back to testing scores or anything like that? All right, student retentions. We have 3 students all in 7th grade that are being retained. Did offer summer school programs to parents and guardians. As of right now, they all refused to complete a program, so they went back with us again in 7th grade.
What are the reasons for retention? Instead of
Some 2 out of the 3 teach them a lesson. You know,
That's right.
basically, that's
School hard knocks.
yeah, it's like, you know what, I can tell you all year.
Consequences.
I think what these kids don't realize, like, I know before I became an administrator, we really didn't hold back too many kids, maybe between you. And I just can't justify sending a kid on to the next grade level if they're failing 3, 4, 5 subject areas. It's not, you're not doing them any good.
And especially when I was involved, we didn't have this option, and sometimes transportation was an issue. But this year, you offered a computerized something.
You could take it online.
They could take it online, and they still didn't do it.
Well,
so.
I mean, also there's a cost involved too. And there are some parents that don't have it, and there's some parents that say, I'm not going to give it to you. Because how much one of them was like $500, wasn't it?
What, the
Gloucester
online?
Township's $350, and online was like $100.
Okay.
It's not $300. So when you have kids that are multiple, sure. You know, I mean, we can get by if there was one, I understand that, but they get multiple, we're talking 2, 3, 4 subject areas. And they've been told we had, you know, parent conferences, meetings, we had guidance counselors involved, you know, child study team, even if it's not special, just to kind of get them in, and it was just.
These are regular kids, not even.
These are regular education kids, yeah, they're just not like, but I'll pick Mrs. Fields' brain all the time, saying, what can I do to help, like, help me motivate, you know what I mean?
Teach
Like,
them a lesson.
but that's what they're doing, so.
These are kids that we have pulled down out of the cafeteria and said, let's do work in our office. I mean, there are a lot of interventions that we put in place, but, you know, at
So
some
would
point
they
in
work for
time-
you one-on-one?
They do work well one-on-one at times.
Okay.
Less than 1%.
At times, but you know,
Yeah.
it's those kids that are going through their own hormonal situations, and some of them, it's just a battle.
And once they leave here, we can only do so much for them.
Right.
You're right.
And we try to point the parents, and Jan's work with parents on, you know, parenting workshops, and different things, resources available to them, and, you know.
Now, is there any strategies set up to track these 3 this year?
This year, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They're gonna have, you know, mentor them up early in the year. We have some, you know, What part of
Here
teachers?
you go, Charlie. What gender?
What's that?
That's-
Those are I don't like this typecast. It's very tight.
Now, my question was only, it was research based.
Mine is too.
All three
Mine
are
was
males.
research based, that's
All
all it
three are
was.
males. You are correct. But we do have,
See, if they had been retained in kindergarten.
it's difficult, but you know, we don't want, it's the worst thing you can do for those kids, because last year we did it, we
Yeah.
saw it that first day, you're calling kids, and I call them by homeroom, and I'm showing you. And, you know, Mark Iannucci was in 7th grade last year, and they're calling Mark Iannucci in 7th grade again this year. It's tough. You
It's a
know?
big pill to swallow.
It is, and it's, you have to watch, the bullying piece comes into it, the harassment piece comes into it, but eventually, you know.
Are these 3 in different homerooms? Have you?
I'm not sure. 2 out of the, I have to check, because the one we were waiting to find out if he attended summer
He was
school.
supposed to go to summer school, but
Okay.
we haven't gotten
Yeah,
it.
so that's what I'll have to check, but right now, they're not currently. The one, I haven't even placed in a home yet,
Okay.
but he won't be placed.
But the other 2 were in separate
They're
homerooms?
separate. Yeah, but
These students will start the year on some sort of tracking system. I know what we did with some students that were struggling academically, we gave them a piece of paper, basically every teacher had to sign what work they were getting, the
Right.
daily sheet,
Are there
so.
contracts for these
Yeah.
3? Are there parental contracts for these 3? Okay.
So when those students come in, we will put them on that daily sheet.
To what?
one of them didn't hold up their end of the bargain.
Right. Yeah, right, exactly. You're gonna hold, you know, you're gonna hold the parents accountable too, as much as you can.
All right, suspension report, our number's a little different. This is middle school. All right, total number of incidents.
Wait, excuse me,
Oh, I'm
I'm sorry.
sorry.
I have something to say about this before they get all crazy. No, that's suspension.
Oh, okay.
When we do our end of the year, and this is just information I know because of where I work and staying in the community, 55, is it 55?
Yeah.
Go to the next slide.
Yeah.
55 suspensions, you see 26 of them are because of late or cutting detentions. But so really, there's not to me, there's only 20-something
Yeah.
true
Yes.
suspensions.
Yeah.
I appreciate the late policy, I appreciate, if you cut detentions, because what's happening is, I don't know that, we didn't do it this June, but the 10th graders and the 11th graders and the 12th graders, when they would give a report, our administration would break it down by where you come from, what they're doing wrong, how many referrals from kids from Runnemede, how many referrals from kids from Belmar, and I gotta tell you, when they get to Triton, I know it's some of the kids, because I have a kid that is in that grade too, but the kids from Runnemede are out of control.
Late?
No, everything. So it's people always say to me, well, are they following the policies over there? Are they getting suspended for what they should? Are they ready to be? Because when that slide comes up, I have 100 heads turn around and look at me. All of my colleagues, because they know, you know what I mean? And so this may seem like a lot to you, but to me, this is our administration following policies and reprimanding kids for what they need to be reprimanded in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, right? So 55 names, to me, I'm good. Now I'm gonna tell them that. You know what I mean? Now I can say, there's 55 instances that they needed to be suspended.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because then when they cut a detention, and they're like,
Consequence, right.
I never cut, when I got cut a detention in middle school, I never got,
Right.
I never got suspended.
Right.
I never got an in-school suspension, I never got an out-of-school suspension. Oh, what do you mean I'm not allowed to just curse at a teacher? I mean, come on.
Right.
You know what I
There has to
mean?
be consequences, right?
There has to be consequences,
Exactly.
they're young adults.
Right, exactly.
55 is not a lot, when you think of all of the students going through that difficult time in their lives when they're trying to test the water. And then, so to me, I applaud the administration for sticking to the policy, because that's why we have policy.
And just to refresh our policy here, 3 lates at detention, 6 lates, they get 2 detentions, 9 lates, they get 3 plus a parent conference, 12 lates in the marking period, they get automatic ISS. And that's, compared to some other schools I've talked to,
Right.
we're a little stricter. And that's something we've developed over the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years, because it got to a point, when we did those demerits a long time ago, it was.
You have it.
And this is mostly in-school suspensions, correct? Did you have that data?
Yeah, most of it's, yeah, anything for being late would be in school suspension.
Right.
There were some out of school.
Yeah, we
Oh,
had.
absolutely,
yeah.
but there should be in this, if they're misbehaving or they're disrespectful to the point that you're not gonna tolerate it anymore, then we have a policy, that's what our policy is for.
Exactly.
They should be suspended out of school.
Absolutely, I agree.
This isn't like a, yeah, it's not elementary school.
It's not, yeah.
And the 4th and 5th grade are treated differently, don't get me wrong, it's a little, we tweak a little bit. But we did have some 4th and 5th grade students this year that abused that late policy. And it's the worst when you have a 4th grade young lady or young gentleman, and you tell them they're gonna have a day in school, but they're, and we usually cut them a little, maybe bump them up to 20 or something day, but what are you gonna do? And unfortunately, sometimes I wanna suspend the parent, because.
That's the reason I don't punish the kids, because I think at the age my kids are, it's not, they can't bring themselves to school. You know, they can't bring themselves.
So it's a different picture.
Not that I ever experienced this, but just say I was in high school and I was late.
Yes, you
I remember my mother having to go to, they called her to court.
Yeah, well,
Sure.
and we've done that.
That was when I went through my difficult
Yeah,
time.
Mr. Mongo, I think I was there. But the problem, and I talked about high school, now with, the problem with high school, you missed that first period reading class,
Oh,
you could have a straight A, but if you hit a certain amount of.
Certain amount of
grades or
days.
whatever, you're not
It's
gonna
per class.
I
you're not
know.
gonna get credit for that.
They don't get
And
that.
I try to explain to them the
They
first
don't
day of
get
8th
that.
grade, when we talk about that, is what credit completion in the summer, it's sitting in cafeterias. But they don't understand,
They don't get it. And I'm the teacher who's like, you're at 14. Like, it's January, you can't miss my class again more than one time. Like, because they have to have like real life conversations. And I'm not saying that I ever thought that you didn't do it, but it's just something that we do, like kind of a retreat at the end, at the end of our year, saying this is how many per grade and then per sending district. What like they can break it down like that, and they do pie charts and
When
stuff.
you look at this, all of those suspensions were by 28 kids. So if you divide that, I mean,
Right.
that's only about 7 or 8 kids a class
Right.
getting suspended. So what happens to them when they go to high school?
Well, a lot of things happen, you know.
Our kids and the other kids, it surprises me.
And what it is I'm going to tell you what we think it is because I spoke to administration about it. What I think it is our kids walk home.
They go home.
So our kids don't go home. They'll go to Dunkin' Donuts, or they'll go get in trouble behind Rita's, or they'll go. They don't have to get on a bus and get bussed out. Our kids get in a lot of trouble around the city because we don't have buses. So I have answers for
Or can
them,
hang out
and they
to wa-
agree.
They might be hanging out watching practices or that kind of stuff.
Doing things like that, yeah, when they should like be practicing, instead they're not. So there's factors that definitely hinder our kids
Because I was
and don't
surprised,
hinder
I
the
thought you were
other.
going to say Runnemede was the
It's the
best.
best,
So did
yeah.
No, actually Runnemede was the worst, like 2 or 3 years in a row. But we had a
But what
couple
about
rough
break-
groups too.
I'd be interested to know what the breakdown was as to far as what their infractions were. You know, do the infractions follow? You know what I mean? Like you said,
Are they
is it
fights?
after school
They
stuff?
leave.
Is it right?
Are they late?
Insubordination.
So what were the other suspensions for? Not lateness.
You could have fighting, you could have gross disrespect, you could have,
We had 3 for
foul
fighting.
language, yeah, we only had 3 fighting, one.
That's not bad, really.
Yeah, because I
Not for
remember
middle
it
school.
was through the school year.
Yeah,
Most of it was like
think
subordination.
Yeah, you get the
Most
reports
Yeah, we
each
get
month.
those reports
Right.
every month.
I just knew when this slide came out, I knew that some people would be upset. But to me, I'm like, this is backing up what I know that everything that goes on on a daily basis here. We don't tolerate anything here. And believe me, they have a point to prove to the older kids when they go over there. Here they are, the older kids. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that go on, but to me, this number isn't as bad as it
If
really
you take a look
looks if
at,
you think about it.
if you multiply, there's 475 kids in school, right, multiply it by 180 days,
Right.
I'm not mathing. wizard, so I can't tell you what that is, but it's a lot of days.
And only
55
28 kids, and only 28 kids.
And it's only 28 kids.
So some of them are the multiple offenders.
Yes.
Right, exactly. Recidivism.
I think we had,
Consequences to
we
behavior.
had like, one kid 3 times for lates.
Which means he was late 36 times.
He was late a lot.
Oh, he was late a lot.
Just
But
call
see,
it.
that's like the thing that is hidden behind this slide is, like, I feel like that number is low because I know how much time and effort is put into interventions.
Right.
I mean, teacher interventions, administrative interventions. I mean, for a kid that you know that, I hate to say this, but it's reality. There are some parents that are so bogged down with what they are doing in their daily lives that that kid has to walk to school on his own. Well, he may not start to walk to school until 8:10, okay, and get here at 8:30. One, I'm glad the kid is even taking the initiative to walk to school. B, if we suspend him, we're just gonna keep him at home and away from school, so we have to come up with other interventions. I mean, we have talked about, you know, even starting school late for some students and staying here later. I mean, we rack our brains trying to think of things to do for these kids.
Because that same kid probably didn't eat breakfast and anything else too,
Or,
right?
or they stop by Wawa and they're eating a Snickers bar for breakfast.
Right.
So then by the time they come here, they've had 2 Snickers bars and a Coke.
Mm-hmm.
So then third period, they're all wound up.
Right.
And then by 5th period, they're asleep because they crash,
Right.
you know? So, I mean, that's just what you have to deal with in middle school, but countless interventions, countless talks with students, you know, that pre-counseling thing. I know Ms. Beta works so much with students by having groups, so I wish we had numbers on that. Ms. Davidson, you wouldn't want to see the numbers on detentions then, but.
I completely understand there has to be consequences. I just, that number initially just was like, wow. But you're right, you have to follow.
That's why I had to stop our
But
conversation.
there has to be
Because I heard they-
consequences to behavior, and they need to know that.
And 0 would be.
They keep coming to work late, or they're not gonna have a job.
That's right, exactly.
Well, and some of them are chronically late so often. I mean, it's almost unbelievable when you hear the numbers of how many days some kids are late, that we've talked to teachers, to first period teachers, to ask about how students are doing when we're involved with evaluations. And some teachers say, well, you know, I really can't tell you because I rarely see them. They're here, but they come late so often that they're rarely in a class, or they're only in for a short period of time.
And what happens is if those special ed students come to me and I have them first period as a freshman and they're still late because it's even a couple minutes earlier, they fail my class if they don't go to credit completion.
Yeah.
I have a question, and this is probably going to reflect on my naivety of what's going on since I'm so new to the board. But you said you were graceful about things to get the kids to get here on time. Have you ever had a Renaissance program? A Renaissance program, you know, what Renaissance program is a program. It's a national program. You can have it at the high school level or a junior high level, and it's based on attendance, behavior, and grades. And kids earn points by less litenesses to school, bringing that D up to a B, instead of having 11 days of absence the first half of the year, they only had 6. And they get to go to special activities, they get recognized, because in every school you have trophy cases for the athletics. But we don't put enough emphasis sometimes on turning a kid around to come to school late, poor attendance, their attitude in the classroom being disruptive, or their grades. And some kids through a Renaissance program, it turns them right around. Frank Palatucci from Highland High School initiated that Renaissance program in South Jersey. He's like a Renaissance king or guru. But that's possibly something you may want to look into. It really does motivate it, because I had Frank come and talk to my school when I was a principal. And we did the program. It made remarkable changes in the kids that come late, the kids that gave back talk, started fights, had lousy grades. It really turned a lot of those kids around. So there's possibly an idea.
And then maybe we could get like, you know, community donations, and maybe have like what we do, we try to be like a barbecue at the end of the year. So if you have a card, you get to leave. You know what I mean? Maybe we could get like some donations and give them like little rewards like that, or even if it's a kickball game or a hockey game or something.
And Runnemede has more banks than I think we need. And there's a federal law that requires all banking firms to contribute 10% of the profits to non-charitable activities. So you can turn to TD Bank and Wells Fargo in town, and whatever that third one is, and they would give some money towards the Renaissance program, turn to places like we did, Campbell Soup. But that's an idea maybe that would help these children.
All right, actually, Sam, you were part of a Renaissance program when you were in high school yourself, because the girls.
Well, Triton has a Renaissance
Yes, they
program.
did.
Yeah, we have one.
Right, but it was
It really
initially
does work. It's
begun
amazing.
when you were students.
No, and we
Or you
still,
have
and we
special
still,
assembly.
we still do it, we still have, and we
Only
have
once
like
a good
fundraisers,
attendance.
like Battle of the Bands. What kids don't like to come, like, you know, the high school kids, and that's like the kids come in and pay, then she'll use that money to buy stuff for the parties and stuff, so you can have other little fundraisers, like a Renaissance dance or whatever you would do here. But it does work, because then they know, if I'm late more than 2 times and I won't boot. In the spring, when a lot of kids have their license, I can't go to that party outside where our VPs are grilling and we have a DJ and a moon bounce outside. I can't go to that unless I have a valid card.
And you can do a lot with that doesn't cost the district any money.
Yes.
For instance, you have a yearbook. At our school, those kids that had Renaissance cards, they got their yearbooks 3 days in advance. You know, it doesn't sound like a lot, but to kids,
So that
was a cool thing. I'm getting my yearbook on Monday, you have to work on Thursday. Little things that you can do. Kids that earn so many Renaissance points, for instance, if you had, I think it was like a low A average, like a 91, 92 average, and you had a Renaissance card, you were excused from taking, you could pick one exam, of all your exam. If you had a high A average and you had a Renaissance card, you were allowed to not have to take 2 final exams. So there's a lot of things you can do that doesn't cost any money, but it helps motivate kids that need some extra motivation.
We also do, like, a big one in our school is if you have a gold card, which is like an A average, if you have a gold card, you just need to show it to your teacher to go to the restroom. Like, you don't need to get your agenda book signed. So, and then when we have our hallway monitors, you just have your card or you have it in your little thing, we see that you have a gold card and you're good to go. Well, we just like give a nod and let them go. So little things, again, that don't cost the district any money, but is, you know, important to the kids, you know.
Right, sounds like something to talk to Triton's guidance department about, to see what kinds of things we could do here as incentives.
That seems like a good program.
Who runs the program in Triton?
Debbie Stecker.
Who keeps track of all the information?
You would have to talk to Debbie. I know she has like a secretary helper. There's one, you know, like guidance, and then there's one secretary that will, like, somehow they do it where they spit it out, and then she just puts stickers, she gets the little cards made up. Yeah, and she just puts the sticker. So the card has to be valid. So like, say on my lunch, I will stand in the front of the barbecue, like they can't give me a card from her first marking period. It has to be that card from that time. You know what I mean? It helps us with latenesses and stuff, because when our kids start to drive and we don't have parking, and they're parking down by Heritages to walk up, there's so many latenesses when they get to junior and senior year, but the little incentives do help, so they can't be late more than 2 times.
Do they earn, like, points to accumulate to the card, or does everybody start off with?
It goes by absenteeism and grade point average.
Yeah, you have different colored cards. Gold cards
It's
is the
white,
top.
blue, red, and gold in
And a lot of times you go by your school colors.
Yes.
Gold is the highest, and then your other colors are your school colors.
Red, so ours are red.
So
white,
everybody
blue.
starts off with a card, and then the
No,
goal is to work
the end
towards?
the end of the first marking period. So you would have this whole first marking period to really think of
The
what you're
criteria
being
is
like.
like, get a card, gotcha, okay. So instead of like the merit system, it's more like
It's a
a
merit
merit
system.
system.
Merit system.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
But it's pushing the things that sometimes don't get pushed enough. That's academics, your behavior, your attitude in school,
Right,
getting to
right.
school all the time. Because when you get into real life, one of the things that you're gonna keep a job
Mhm.
is, hey,
Right.
I'm gonna keep her because she comes to work every day and on time.
Mhm.
This guy's always late, he missed. So it has an influence on your future life.
Yep.
Definitely.
We'll look into that.
All right, HIB, 10 cases reported, which I think 7 of them came probably early in the year, maybe. I don't really know when we first got scared. I mean, I thought we were going to have a lot more. I love when they bring the kids in.
No, that starts next week.
Preschool's not here yet, are they?
No, the 10.
Our numbers, these are not reported to us. 10. I mean, that, to me, I thought we were going to be talking
Much higher.
70,
Yeah.
80, 90.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And some of those other districts we've talked to, I had a couple trainings this year down there at Gloucester County College, and I think it was West Ed, one of those
55 in a month.
55 in a month or something like that.
What's
So,
HIV cases?
harassment, intimidation, and bullying.
Okay, gotcha.
Unfunded mandate that was passed down last year.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, we
Where
were
we're
both.
required to look into everything.
The state does that a lot, though.
And it's even things like, I mean, 2 of them were, I think once even before school started.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny and Joey, or, excuse me, Mary and Sally. Well, my favorite thing were on social media,
Yeah, you
bashing one
started it,
another.
now I'm getting attacked.
And
How is that even possible?
Oh, I didn't.
bashing one another and saying stuff, you know, and my feelings of social media, it's the biggest waste of time ever. But that's just my personal feeling. But I understand it's part of society today, because I get that. But these kids, they say things they would not say face to face. And that's when these things started. So they're saying, I'm going to do this to you, I'm going to do that to you, or they're posting, you know, your picture next to the picture of a pig, and they're having to vote for who's uglier or something like that. Like, it's the sick things these kids do. Or adults, because you find out mom's standing behind them telling them what they should be doing. And that happened in one of the cases. The mother was.
So it was a female influencing that child.
Yes, as a matter of fact.
Negatively.
But anyway, so we had 10 cases. Out of those 10 cases, 3 of them were considered HIV, which I believe you received that information as well. Mrs. Beta, Mrs. Field did a great job leading that effort. We'll do that again this year. We'll tweak some of the things. Action plans were provided, and we didn't have any. I don't think we had any follow-up problems in the cases that we had that were deemed HIV, but there was no repeats, offenders, or anything that happened. And a couple of the cases reported were the same kid, the same boys might have been doing it, or something like that. So our cases were low compared to some other schools. Okay. All right, changes for the upcoming school year. We're talking about full-time basic skills and also an intervention teacher at Volts. And that person, Ms. Grasso, will take over those responsibilities. How did we get there? We had a retirement in 6th grade social studies. Looked at the schedule. Was able to cover 6th grade social studies with current staff. Now we also dropped 6th grade social studies from 5 days a week to 4 days a week, so those teachers could fit it in, much like we do science. However, those 6th graders are going to come into the library for like a research period with Mrs. Maytag. So they're going to be having 5 days of social studies, but one of those periods is going to be, it'll probably be mainly in the computer lab. Because social studies is a class. I mean, you can do so much stuff, just project-based oriented, and that's what she'll be working on. That's what she's been doing lately, just like when Ms. Miles was here with our teachers, a lot with the social studies, incorporating technology, study skills, research skills, different things she'll do on it. So that we're able to have that position. Ms. Grasso will take her out of the 5th grade classroom. As you approved a couple months ago, Ms. Griffiths is coming on board. So Ms. Grasso is going to be taking over basic skills, predominantly in 4th and 5th, parts of 6th grade. And then Ms. Carrasco, we were able to cover her responsibilities in 8th grade special education with existing staff in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade as well. Not that they weren't doing other things before, but now they're taking over the responsibilities. She was mainly language arts, I believe, last year in 8th grade. We've shuffled some people around, utilized more of our aides as well to support all those type of kids. So that's what they'll be doing. I know I've talked with Ms. Field, we're still trying to finalize exactly what the schedule's going to look like. That intervention piece might not be done until the first couple weeks of the school year. Until we do some testing of those kids, with the fast math and with the Read Naturally program that we've used for that. One of the things I didn't put on here, but I know it's expensive. I know you use it over at Triton, that Read 180 program. I mean, you're looking to spend money. If you have any, shake that tree out, there's money there.
Well, you don't need to spend any money on training, because I'm
Yeah.
in the 17, so I'll come in.
Exactly, it's just the program stuff, but I know that's something, if done right, that can improve your literacy scores. Great. So that's something.
What's that?
That's what I teach.
Reading.
It's a program through Scholastic, it's a double period.
For special ed?
No, I also have students who don't score well on the New Jersey Ask 8. My goal is to get them on grade level so they pass the HESPA junior year, the high school proficiency assessment, the first time. So,
And that's for what grades?
there's a middle school and an elementary school option.
And how much is it?
Probably.
I'm thinking it's like $50,000.
$50,000.
It's very expensive.
About $50,000. We started it in our district, this will be my 7th year.
Is it beneficial?
Well, yeah, it definitely has a lot of benefits, and I think that over 65% of our students at Triton, probably more, but at least 65% are successful in HESPA the first time they take it, after they come through us.
65% of the children in your service.
Who
Right.
come through me.
Okay, provide consistent instruction on a daily basis for those basic skills kids, that's what we really need, because I don't think we've seen that over the last couple of years. We've kind of let those kids, I won't say slide, but we're just not giving, we need to give them more, because they're not getting that right now. The advisory period, we moved that a little bit, so if your children were here last year, for the 4th and 5th grade is a different time than 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The advisory period now is going to be done between 6th and 7th period. Now allow all teachers to have access to the entire student population. So it'll be like all hands on deck. And we have every teacher in this building, no matter what they teach, doing some type of advisory.
And what time of day is that?
That's usually, hold on,
I
what's
can
around
stand
my
this
head.
middle
I want to
school
say
line.
it's
6:03.
12, yeah, you know, it's a goofy time. 12:45 to 1:30. It's like 12:20 to 12:20.
Okay, so it's
12:20 to
after lunch, you're
12:45.
saying
It's after all the
lunch.
lunches are completed.
Okay.
Where before it was like between the lunches,
Mhm.
or sometimes in 4th and 5th grade. We're doing that. We've also moved up.
District one?
What's that? Sorry. What else did I put up there? I put the flexible grouping there. We talked about Ms. Epstein a little bit earlier, as well as Mrs. Hines. I think I spelled her name wrong, so I'll apologize to her. Working with those kids, flexible grouping. I always can think about flexible grouping. That's a little bit. I was thinking about like Laura Ingalls, or Little House on the Prairie fans. Yeah, I used to watch the show. Like remember they used to house all the kids. We're not too old for that, are we? Little House on the Prairie? Come on. Laura Ingalls, 8, 9 years old, and she's in school with a 16-year-old. They have one-room schoolhouse, and the teacher's like, how am I supposed to service all it? But you'd see that 16-year-old in the reading group with little Laura and her pigtails. YouTube. Okay, YouTube. Right. But that's flexible grouping. It's just hitting those kids and seeing where they are. That's one of the initiatives they really, 6th grade teachers took it and ran with it 2 springs ago, where they started some of those ideas, looking into it. Barb really latched on him last year to do it. And then it's kind of, I call it infected. She's infected now the 7th grade teachers, because they see the 6th grade teachers raving about it, how great it's doing. We're able to get those kids back out of the 6th grade resource for English and reading, and they were back in the mainstream classroom.
Well, and I think the other thing that's important, and I think Nancy, you referred to it earlier, is certain kids may not be eligible for special education. However, they could be suffering just as much as another student who is, and it's not really fair to them that they can't get the supports that they need because they don't have that label. So this flexible grouping in the general education classroom is really nice, because you've got the special education teacher, the general education teacher, and sometimes a classroom assistant, depending on where we have those people assigned, who are able to break these groups down into smaller units. And a small group who might, for example, be working on, for example, in 6th grade, the grade that had such nice scores on the language arts literacy, those kids worked a lot on comprehension skills. They would and the teachers would plan together with Barbara Epstein. They would break down vocabulary that was in the unit. They would do guided comprehension questions where they would prep the kids ahead of time on what they were reading for, how to break the text apart in order to answer comprehension questions, those kinds of things. And they would do that on a group-by-group basis. So one group was working on the reading assignment, but focusing on a certain set of vocabulary, while another group was working on a certain set of comprehension questions. So they used the same material, so that was great for the special ed kids because they could be doing what everybody else in that grade was doing. They didn't have to be off in a segregated room working on something separate. And it was great for the other struggling readers in that class who weren't identified as special ed, because if they had weaknesses in comprehension, they could be taught in a group that was really hitting the things that they weren't, that they were having trouble with, that they were struggling with. So it's really, we got a double benefit from it, I think, because it provided a lot of support through all of the teaching staff to the general education kids, and it addressed what the special ed kids needed in a setting that's typical of their peers, which is where most of those kids want to be, and where most of the parents want their kids to be, too.
Now, as far as feedback from your staff with this flexible grouping, how did they feel they were able to manage their time within a class period with this flexible grouping?
As the time went on, they got more and more comfortable with it. I think that was a concern, just like you're raising it, because it's a natural question to have. They were wondering, how in the world are we going to prepare for this? And Barb met with them after school. There were some weeks when they met almost every day after school with Barb to get a unit started. Once they got the hang of what it was that they were doing, and they saw that it was something that they were capable of, their comfort level increased tremendously.
That's good.
And I think
that's so important.
Yeah, I think if you ask them, if you ask Carrie Ems or Devin Anderson or one of the 7th grade or the 6th grade teachers to compare what they thought about it in the beginning of the year to the end of the year, they would say that they were just thrilled that they did it and that they managed it well. And the other thing is they almost asked for it on their own because the special education teachers who were doing in-class resource said that they hated, they would pull kids out into resource classes while the rest of the kids were in the general ed class, and they felt bad for them. I said, I think they could manage some of this, and they wanted to find a way to do it. But again, with what you're talking about with not having that expertise that Barbara or certainly Laurie Hines, who's back with us, will have, they felt more secure being able to try it in the general ed class, having that coaching from the reading person to help them to do it.
Now, what grade levels does this encompass, this flexible grouping?
That'll be in 6th and 7th grade.
6th and 7th.
And it'll affect 8th grade by sometime in the fall. It's just
Well, it's gonna have to now.
It does.
Because your 6th grade had it.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
so you
absolutely.
can't-
Yeah,
we can't drop
we're building
it,
it up.
right?
You know what I mean?
So,
Like
right,
I said,
that has to move
yeah.
forward.
But it's
It kind of was a pilot, and I think the culmination will be once they see the results. Because the amount of gains that they made, according to the ASK data, is tremendous. I mean, that group that they have this year, from their 5th grade year to their 6th grade year, 51% of those students increased their score in JX. So,
Now, can you see this working for 4th and 5th? I mean, once you get it up to 8th,
as well.
will it go back? Could you?
Yeah, you can always push it. Yeah, you can always push it back.
Absolutely.
And they're doing some of that
If
stuff.
you're having
Yeah.
such great
But they're
success
already doing
Yeah,
something.
they're doing some of that stuff now with the
guided
readers,
reading.
with guided reading.
with their guided reading, yes, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's getting the flexible grouping and it's shoring that program up more. What happens is typically when you've got your self-contained K of 5, those teachers are doing guided reading and they're doing all that stuff anyway. 6th grade, they start to do whole group instruction, and then you lose the opportunity to work in small groups. They aren't doing guided reading. So Barbara's working, she put the whole enchilada into it, and the flexible grouping, guided grouping, literature circles, and then word study, vocabulary, all of those things. All of the components that are happening in the younger grades when they're learning to read, that teachers make assumptions by the time they get to a certain age that they are just now reading to learn. They don't have to continue to learn reading skills. Well, the truth is, they continue to need to learn reading skills even in the younger grades.
But I just know, I mean, as a former classroom teacher a long time ago, flexible grouping would certainly help the average student. Where, again, it's the same old educational question we hear all the time. We service the children that are on the low end of the spectrum, and we try really hard to entice the ones at the upper level. There's little guys in the middle.
And once again, that's one of the things that Barbara's going to be doing this year with the lower grades, to shore up those guided reading programs to help them develop the flexible grouping more. So when we think, if I can just interject here, when we think in terms of bang for our buck, so for $40,000 a year, we get Barb Epstein a couple of days a week, and she'll be value added. So what she will do is she's the extra person who can teach our teachers some of the additional skills that they need to do a better job in the classroom, assessing the performance of their students and instructing in specific ways. Now, $75,000 a year buys you a teacher who can work with more students. So 40, 75, would it be nice? Absolutely, it would be good. But in the absence of that extra $35,000, what do I have money to do? And it's grant funded, so I didn't have to take it out of the local budget. Can I get somebody in here who can strengthen the practice of our teachers instructionally? And that's what Barb Epstein is going to do this year.
Anything else?
If you mention her name one more time.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Lunch periods, we moved fourth grade up. That lunch period last year was combined. Fourth and fifth graders ate, had recess at the same time. We've gone now. Joanne might disagree with me from the food service aspect of how they told us it worked out for them, you know, the NutriServe and serving all the kids in 23 minutes and everything else. But it worked. However, we're going to go back to the way it used to be, where fourth grade eats at one period, fifth grade eats, and they switch for recess. We'll go back to that. Also, waste management is going to pump up our recycling carbon footprint, whatever that was last year that we had started. I can't remember the technical name, but I met with them over the summer. He's actually good. There's a new guy that's a representative for them. He's going to come out and do a presentation for us on September 7th, all the kids and the staff, about they've even changed what we did last year to recycle more things and, you know, new initiatives, get money back and things like that from waste management. So you'll see all those different colored waste baskets in the lunchroom for their recyclable or half-eaten food or organics or whatever it is. So that's a little change in the lunch program, because I know it got a little crazy at times, but we'll tweak that so we don't have any problems.
Once I understand it, then I think they'll do better.
Yeah, you go.
It's like sometimes they ask me and I'm like, I get confused, but it's a good program because it gets the kids conscious about what is going on and the amount of waste. And I mean, I think if you stood in the cafeteria to see how much food is being wasted, just in general, is mind-boggling. Like, obviously, I'm a big guy, so like a sandwich doesn't stand a chance against me. Like these kids will take one bite out of a sandwich and then just throw it away. So it makes them conscious about some of the things that's going on with the environment.
We also talked about creating more documented and reporting of student progress with parents. Still hope we're working together, because this is that time where I don't have a 7th grade student yet, but I know when they hit that 6th, 7th grade year, you know, their friends are more important than their family in a lot of ways, and they're not telling you that they just bombed their math test on Thursday. You have to leave that in the parent portal. I think sometimes as administrators or teachers, we rely too much on that parent portal thinking those people are checking it, but we can check to see how many times they've logged on. Sometimes it's 2 times and it's the end of May. But we need to do a better. What's that?
You checked that when we first had that as well? Because
Yes.
you thought I was a stalker.
Yes.
Checked like 3 times a day.
Worked in block you out, I see. You know what I mean? Doing good. But we need to do a better job of making sure that these parents know exactly what's going on. And like I said, we meet grade level meetings every week. Unfortunately, sometimes the same students' names come up every week. We need to do a better job of, if that happens, we see it, you know, in our notes we have from those grade level meetings that, you know, this teacher brought up Rob Mungo 3 weeks in a row because he's not getting done in social studies class. We need to make contact with that parent and say, look, what can we do? Here's where we're at. I noticed you haven't checked the portal. Is there anything wrong? Do you need your contact? Sometimes it's, well, I lost my contact information. Okay, well, it takes me 5 seconds to print that out for you, and I'll send it home in a sealed envelope, or I'll mail it to your work, or if you don't want your child to see it, just tell them what to do. We need to do a better job so there's no surprises. Because even though it is 2012 and we have, you know, the internet and we have phones that have everything on it, parents aren't checking it, so sometimes they are surprised. And even maybe they're not returning a phone call from a teacher, they're not returning the phone. We need to do a better job so we're on the same page, so we're not getting hit with any, surprises towards the end of the year.
If we got onto that real quick, Mark, I noticed when my kids came through basic skills and things of that sort, the report that comes with the report card when you're in basic skills is very
Detailed?
not
We don't-
detailed.
we don't use it
Yeah,
anymore.
we don't even have
We don't
that
use the report
reporting.
cards anymore.
Oh, you don't do it anymore. Is there a way that we could, probably ask a little bit more for the basic skills teacher to do this, but to kind of give them a little bit more information on
Well,
where
the
their
fourth and
kids
fifth
are
grade, I
work
think
time, or?
for us this year, I don't know if what we're gonna craft up, to show where they're at, but maybe use some of that map data just so she can organize, send something home where they can see. Or show, look, this is what we're working on.
Yeah.
Maybe you can work with them on multiplication or whatever it is,
Right.
they do flows.
Right,
So
just
whatever
get
it
some
might be.
general idea, just so they know, so parents at home know where their kids are, especially the younger grade levels. Older grade levels kind of hard, because, kids are kind of on their own, not telling their parents stuff, but K through 3, really, we're working with them at home as well, so.
Okay.
Good idea.
Again, parents, we'd love to have them at everything.
I know.
I'd like to get more parent volunteers that want to come and help out with different events, whether it be an ice cream social, help dip ice cream, whether it be, we always have people available. It's tough with jobs and responsibilities, but people are willing to help. But we need help in and out of the classroom, whatever it's going to be. We had parents helping with drama last year, different activities, and we have coaches relying on parents for helping get the word out. If something's canceled, I don't have so-and-so's number. Just getting parents involved, but also getting involved in coming back to school night, coming to conferences. As you well know, 4th, 5th grade, yeah, they come to conferences because demand that they come, kind of, sending letters out. We send letters out in 6th, 7th, 8th grade sometimes. They don't want to come, but we try to accommodate them in any way we can. And if it means we have a phone conference, whether it's, get the teachers freed up during a time, the parent wasn't available, but we got to get them in there for that and get them on board.
Is it mandatory?
What's that? Conferences, no.
So they get the report card regardless?
They would get, let's say if we have conferences Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, if the parent hasn't come in yet, they could send home on Friday.
Why?
That's just the way it's.
Sometimes they can't get them.
Why can't it can't be held?
No, because if the parent works, the shift work and everything else, we can't just say.
We're usually pretty successful, at least with phone conferences. Some parents they'll never be able to come in, but we get them.
And some parents will tell you, I'm not coming in. I'm not taking time from work to come in to talk.
Right.
Yeah,
I take time off, I don't get paid.
Mhm.
And enhanced attendance at school functions, we want to get the kids out too as well. We want the dances, and took a little hit the last couple of years, and I'll work with PTA, try to get more ideas of other things we can do. 4th and 5th grade in this building, they'll come to anything. We could have, a bingo, get 160 kids from 4th and 5th grade, do great. Same night we'll do 6th, 7th, 8th grade dance. We don't do so well. We're trying to get better attendance at those things. Mr. Mulder, you have anything else to add about that? Nope. I think you're gonna talk from Jersey ask. All right.
Could make that a reward for the a requirement of the Renaissance program.
Absolutely.
And if they attended one extracurricular activity, it's something in their point scheme.
Okay, taking a look at the data, again, there are ways to look at numbers that can present any information. And also there are things that go on behind the numbers that produce certain results. So I think a part of looking at data is deciding what things to keep and what things that you need to tweak. So I think a big part of this process is to think about programmatic changes that need to occur to address some of the weaknesses that we see. 4th grade, as you can see, there's a need for a concentration in language arts. There were 8 students that were new to the district that, brought a certain aspect to the classrooms, changed the dynamic in certain areas, but they had a 38% proficiency level in language arts. As you can see, one special education student was proficient in that. Again, I don't want to just read off all of these numbers, but you can see that in sixth grade, well, we had 66% of the students proficient. We already know one of the factors that we can attribute to that. For eighth grade, we talked about that 71% proficient is a positive thing because what we're trying to do is prepare these students. So one good factor that you have to think about in regards to this number is all of the work that is going on between 4th and 7th grade. Because at some point in time, all of these teachers are building a foundation for these students, so then once they get to 8th grade, then we should see that level. If this level was a lot lower, or one of our lowest scores, I think that we should be alarmed, because then that means that we need to tweak everything that comes underneath that. But to me, it is encouraging to find out that 71% of our 8th graders are proficient, because at somewhere down the road, they are gaining information. There are times where they waver, and they may not take some of the instruction that is given to them, but it does come back to them in their 8th grade
And
year.
the 85% total with the 14 advanced.
Right.
That number compared to, if you look at, I think when the state averages come out, that's going to be,
I think that's gonna be really.
that's pretty high.
Yeah.
Because I know just last night, when I watched our presentation for my school, they were nowhere near that in 8th grade, and that was one of the lower ones identified, 7th and 8th grade language arts throughout the state.
So, the 4th grade proficient dropped 20% from 3rd grade to 4th grade in 1 year, just in one test year, because hers was 57%.
Now,
Yeah, but they're not the same
it's
kids.
not the same kid.
Yeah.
But you have to look at, too,
It's what?
It's a different set of
Different group
kids.
of kids.
What we would really need to look at is where they were, where the
Last year.
4th grade were last year.
Which is what I have. And it's 20 points.
Really?
I have last year's scores, I pulled them.
Okay.
So last year we're at 58.8 in 3rd. That same grade would be 4th grade now, we're at 38% this year for 4th. So it's a 20,
It's a 41% change, basically.
So it's
41% of the students went down in their scores for language arts
in 1 year.
in 1 year.
Now, you also have to remember too, when they're taking these state tests, let's say if there's 50 questions, that they're, Marie, correct me if I'm wrong here, 50 questions, and last year, 35 questions got you to proficiency.
Right.
They may have raised that bar up,
Yeah.
and now
Okay.
43 questions are gonna get you proficient.
But
I'm not saying that
but
happened.
in keeping with that,
Yeah.
if she's looking at the same class, looking at a different class, that different class is still 20% lower. So there is a trend, even if there isn't a trend.
It just came up.
I don't think it's a coincidence. I mean, it could be a coincidence, but it's a close coincidence.
But
Even
that
if it's not the
is,
same group of people
that group of children,
for the 4th grade year.
there was a lot of issues with those kids. this
Right,
year.
you said behavioral.
Behavior issues.
Right.
And to be honest with you, another thing that I would like to see is when that information comes out, what the other 4th graders did around the state, because I know during that test, the teachers were saying, coming down to us at the end of the day, like, we really did not discuss that so much. Like, I don't know where that concept came from, to the point where they kind of thought it was like a piloted test. Like there were some questions on there that were thrown in there to, once in a while they'll do that. They'll have like pilot
Yeah.
tests.
Well, they are putting in items to prepare for the
Yeah.
parts.
Right. So, I mean, for example, I know Dorothy Thomas came down and she was frustrated because she saw the frustration in her students taking the test, because it was like they felt like they weren't prepared for those certain field items. So it will be interesting to see if that was something that was just given to our school or if that was given across the state. So you'll get that information later on.
But that, I mean, we're not gonna try, they're not good, we're very disappointed with the results.
Exactly.
I mean, definitely, that was one of our first things we needed to address in our first meeting. All right, what are we gonna do, with this group of students, particularly, not only this group, now they're 5th graders now, but we have to talk with the 4th grade teachers and say, all right, well, where do you think, or what do we need to do to enhance the program? Now we got a new curriculum coming in and everything else, so it's definitely not something we're gonna say, oh, it's just a bad year, chalk it up and move on. It'll definitely be addressed, so we can get that.
And the burden that we carry as administrators of this building, going into those classrooms, because, you know, walking by, you see all the kids working, you see the teachers working, but what's going on? So it's going to be very important for us to go into those classrooms with our new evaluation system that is coming out. It's going to give us an opportunity to dive in deeper and break down some layers and see really what's going on. Professional development is going to be a huge piece. We've already discussed identified teachers that need to have professional development early in the year so they can start the year on a good note. Because as a teacher, when you see this the first couple of days of school, it's disheartening. So what we have identified is we're going to get those teachers motivated early. Sit down with them, let's find some PD that you can go to. So we have to give them some sort of support in that way as well.
If I could just add on to that real quick, I just did let's look at the numbers real quick. It looks like your 6th grade teacher are doing a phenomenal job, because last year, 5th grade was at 45.3, this year at 66. You have a pretty significant increase.
51% of the students increased.
56.
Our
scores from 5th grade.
Yep, from 5th grade to 6th grade, 51%.
Well, what, I don't know what the numbers are, but if you look at that group, it's this, I hate to keep bashing that 7th grade group. You look at that group scores last year, two springs going over 6th grade, they weren't good. You know, so it's
Right.
to focus on a specific, you know, I think my thing is like we're all responsible. Like I think we get for those that awesome 85% for those 8th grade teachers. The 4th grade teachers get a pat on the back for saying, you know what, you had something to contribute to that as well.
Not only that, well, we can back it all the way down and say kindergarten.
Exactly.
It should be, absolutely. We have to look at the whole pot.
You know, when you start seeing trends from 2-3 years where my class, these kids really aren't doing well, or that's when we need to, and that's what this new evaluation tool is a piece that comes into that. But what I don't see is teachers just cashing it in here.
Oh, no, I don't think they are. I think maybe certain teachers had different methods of teaching that work better for that specific group.
Absolutely.
Is what I'm saying. So
share best practices.
Right. So for instance, that 7th grade last year was at 55.6. This year they're at 71. So whatever that 8th grade teacher did worked for that group of students. So I'm just thinking maybe whatever those ways of teaching are should be brought down or not to restore.
But that's only one, that's only one factor
Kind of
in the
common
formula.
sense.
You know, you also have maturity level of kids.
On differences in the test from year to year.
Exactly.
The test isn't identical. That's the hard part about
Right,
the New Jersey
exactly.
ESQ. We assume that it's very similar at every grade level, but it's not. So it's really hard. It's like apples and oranges.
Standards they set each year,
Mhm.
proficiency standards they set.
So
Yeah,
it's
for
really
example,
hard.
that 3rd and 4th grade where I was telling you about advanced proficient, I would guess if we went back about 5 or 6 years, we might have had maybe 5 kids in the entire history that have gotten advanced proficient. And they just don't get it in 3rd and 4th. The bar was just set too high.
Yeah, last year was 3.5 for 3rd.
You can imagine that when field test items are in there and they throw kids completely because it's not what the teacher taught, how are they gonna approach even the next question?
Next
They
question,
probably know the
exactly.
answer to it.
Absolutely.
And they're 8 or 9 years old.
Especially that 4th grade test where they, for some reason, they give 5 days.
Yeah, it's way too long.
If you see them by Wednesday, second test they take that, they're spent by Wednesday.
And some of the days are 2 hours. You know, like they get 2 hours Monday, 2 hours Tuesday, and then like an hour and a half Wednesday, and an hour and a half Thursday, and an hour on Friday. These kids are 9 years old. That is too much. And the 3rd grade goes 4 days. It's very hard.
Yeah, it is difficult, and I have the interesting role. My daughter was in 4th grade last year, so I saw when she was coming home, and she was frustrated. And my daughter's a pretty good student. She better be. But you know, when she comes home and she's frustrated, that makes me think like, okay, this is a tough test. And she's at 10 years old, she has already acknowledged that was way harder than last year. You know, so it has something to say about that. All right, going to math, we do well in math. Obviously, the trend of low math scores was prior to you know, me getting here, but obviously the district has addressed its math needs effectively, because we see some great numbers in math. You know, for 5th grade to have 90% of their students proficient on this math test is awesome. It's going to be interesting moving forward how our math scores will be affected, because we have to evaluate our math curriculum going from everyday math to the Common Core standards. Something has to be addressed because it's two different philosophies. Those that sit in on the curriculum committee, we've discussed this prior to this meeting. But you know, we are very. I know that I am happy to see some of the progress that goes on with our math scores. There are some areas that we need to identify. In 7th grade, there was a significant decrease from those students that were in 6th grade that moved to 7th grade. We analyzed their progress or lack thereof in their math. So once again, it has put us in a position where we have to figure out how we can assist that 7th grade teacher, what professional development we can provide her, what type of mentoring that if she needs that. So that is one area of focus that we have for mathematics.
When do they start algebra?
They have pre-algebra in 7th grade if they qualify. In 6th grade, the kids are getting like a pre-algebra placement test. And it also comes with New Jersey S scores and MAP scores and teacher recommendations. So they might be in a pre-algebra class in 7th grade. And the same type of thing happens for algebra 1 in 8th grade. So they take a test at the end of their 7th grade year. If they get, and there's like a total number of points. There's like 5 subcategories. When you add up those points, it's like 600 points total. And that's what they need. At least 600 points is the minimum, then they would place the algebra. Like this year, I think we placed 24 kids in 8th grade algebra, which is a lot. That's a lot of kids. And this is a group where you see only 43% of them are proficient totally. You know, but there are a lot of kids. The kids that are good in math are good in math. I mean, so that's going to be a large group, that algebra class.
And how many of them were those 43 kids
Not all,
in
not,
pre-algebra
well,
last
it's
year?
not 43%. No, it would, not all those kids were in that pre-algebra class. There's 3 kids that didn't place into the algebra 1 class this year because
Okay.
of either their grades, they let their grades slip, performance New Jersey S, or performance on that placement test. But there's also some kids that weren't in the pre-algebra class last year that tested in the algebra 1 for this year.
So if you weren't in pre-algebra, if you were in pre-algebra, you can fall out of being in algebra?
Yep.
Because that algebra 1 class is
It's not
trained
automatic.
freshman algebra 1 class.
Yeah.
It's not an automatic assumption.
It's not automatic,
So
you're
you
going to be
skip it.
placed right in there.
Same
So-
book.
So you go backwards?
We don't go backwards, we just,
You go ahead.
if you can't handle it, I mean, what we noticed was if we put a kid in that algebra group, they're really gonna flail. I mean, you know, algebra is totally different than what they're used to be doing. So,
Right.
yeah, they won't be in that group.
They have to be developmentally ready for the level of abstraction that algebra brings.
Right. Okay.
And not every student at that age is prepared for it to do well in it.
Like, none of them failed pre-algebra, but none of them, like, there was 2 or 3, there was 3 of them that didn't perform throughout the year.
Okay.
And we do have the option too in 8th grade to pull them out of the first mark period. They're really not cutting it. 'Cause it's not fair to them.
No,
It just
no.
frustrates them, and we'll have that opportunity in high school. You know.
Any other questions about the math? Sorry. And these are our results for science. Since I've been here, this is only the 2nd year that I've crunched numbers for science, but typically science scores are generally high, so. It's good.
Jen, actually, I sent these slides in, Janet, this is just really, it is what it is. So what this is showing you is the disability category and the number of students we have in those categories. This is district-wide, but yes, this is district.
Yes, this is.
So that's, it just is what it is, David, there's really nothing to interpret here, but interesting to see.
they're all placed out of, some of these are out of district?
Yes.
Or all of these are in district?
No,
Yeah,
that's-
you'll see more slides with different in-district, out-of-district, and I think I need to apologize for this slide. I think my thing, what I did is too big. So hold on one second and I'll fix this slide for you, if I can. Can you see it now in this different view? Okay, I'm just going to show you in the different view rather than spend any extra time. What Janet has to do every year is she has to do a census and figure out the number of our district enrollment, and then thereby, at some point, get our percentage. So we were at 876, 14 of our students were out of district. Actually, it's 134 is our enrollment statistic of
And
number
that
of
includes
special
those
education.
63 speech.
Includes the 63 ESL eligible for speech language services because they are considered under an IEP. Our in-district preschool population is 69 students. Our in-district preschool disabilities is 17 students. And we have three preschool disability students who are out of district because we increased and enhanced our programming inside. We only need to have students out of district, only 3.
Is that this year for the kids who just graduated preschool? This was last year's.
This was
11,
Is
12.
this new? Is this year's
This
statistic
was-
coming up?
This was 11, 12, including the decisions made up through
Oh,
the
this
summer.
summer,
Okay.
right.
Mhm.
Okay. You may want to know how many referrals we got and how many students were found eligible. This is the number of referrals we got by grouping, by grade grouping preschool. There were 18 referrals, 7 were found eligible. K to 8, 23, 18 were found eligible. Total of 41 for 25 new eligibilities.
Is that new?
Yes.
So when you say referral, you mean
Oh,
throughout
a
the
new
course of the year,
referral
it would be
for
somebody
testing?
new, not
Mhm.
somebody that already has an
Right,
IEP?
no, those we
Right.
call reevals, once they're
Okay.
already in the system.
Okay.
What's changed over the years here is that the number of our preschool referrals is really high. To have that many preschoolers identified by parents as having suspected disabilities it gets more, the number gets higher every year. And the other thing that has happened here is over time, our referrals to special education have gone down a bit over time. And I think part of that is because we do have RTI now, we have a much wider variety of interventions in the elementary school, so that fewer kids are being identified to us.
Jen, is there any information out there for preschool parents as far as like a list of criteria that they should be looking for to know whether their child, if they even have a suspicion that there's, they're just not something they feel is quite right in their gut, to know what to look for, to know whether they have to follow the next step to contact a school district?
Something that we,
Child find.
Child Find. The state has a Child Find project, and the district, in the beginning of every year, disseminates information to doctors' offices, notices hung through the elementary schools. I think in the library, I forget the variety of places that we list information about Child Find, but I would say generally the main way parents get guidance on that is from their pediatricians. Before the kids get into the school setting. We don't provide, like the school doesn't hand out a checklist per se that says, if your child has, check off all of these
I
to
just
see.
want to know if there was some place a parent could go, because I've had some preschool parents, come to me and say, I just don't know whether my child would be eligible for a preschool program, if they do have any special needs. And usually my advice to them is to contact the child study team or talk to your doctor.
Right.
That's usually what I say.
Right. And that's
but-
probably what happens. And a number of these referrals, you see that number's high because we classify 7 out of those 18. So 11 of those children we didn't even do an evaluation on. Sometimes we sit with parents. After a parent of a preschooler contacts us, we have a meeting and we ask them to describe what their concerns are about the child. And at that meeting, we have to decide whether it warrants a child study team evaluation. So on a handful of those 18, we decided at that point that an evaluation wasn't warranted. A lot of times it's because the parent's only concern is speech articulation, and speech articulation is not a type of a problem that qualifies for preschool disabled services. And then, you know, the remainder of those cases we did evaluate and took 7 of those.
Because that's
it's-
like 18 is more than half of the kids that were in our preschool program, correct? Because there wasn't only about 27?
No, we have 15 in each class now.
Right.
We have 30 here and
These
30
are
over at
16
Bingham.
students,
Mhm.
Because it's.
But a lot of those probably.
Oh, I'm forgetting 3,
You're
4.
thinking of.
Yeah, 3 and 4.
Okay, I'm only
Mhm.
thinking 4. Okay,
Yeah.
so that was for 3 and 4-year-olds?
3 and 4.
Okay, okay, that
Right.
makes more
Most
sense.
of the referrals are 3-year-olds.
Okay.
Most of the ones that we get are 3. We get a handful of 4-year-olds, but most of them are 3-year-olds.
And a bunch come out of early intervention
Mhm.
programs.
Yes, yeah.
Mhm.
Now, that number of referrals does not include the speech.
No.
No.
Yeah,
That's all.
just-
Speech is totally different.
Yeah.
It is, but
Some
it gets
is.
included in the number and the
Right.
percentage, which really skews the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you include speech, it's 15, the speech included on the 15% eligibility, isn't there? IEPs, or is that just?
I have that here. Hold on, Nancy, I don't want to be sure that I'm telling you the right information. 15%.
And that includes the speech.
Mhm.
It includes, so 15% of the students in the school district have IEPs.
Right,
But
and
it's like
7% of these, 7% of our population has speech services.
Mhm.
So, okay, so technically only 8% of our students have IEPs for other than speech? If you're saying 15% of our students have IEPs, that includes the 63 students, I believe, that have speech, that have an IEP just for speech?
Articulation.
Hold on just one second. I want to be sure that I'm telling you the right thing here. Did I, Nancy, could you go back a slide? I want to be sure that I'm telling you the right.
The next one, the one before that.
Oh, no, yeah, the one before, the one before. Here we go. This is it here.
63 again.
63% of this total number has only speech, eligible for speech and language
Is that
services.
percent or number
Not-
of
that's-
No,
students?
that's the total numbers. That's the total
So
numbers, right.
63 children just have speech?
Have speech, right.
And then,
And the total number of kids with IEPs without that are 134.
And is that the 15%?
That's the
That's the 15%.
so 15% have true educational disabilities, not just an
Not just
articulation?
speech, right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions about special education? Okay. So, on to the report of the goals of 11-12. These were the goals that were established last year by the board when we had our board retreat to improve communication to families regarding their students' progress, improve communication to the public, attain AYP, which I'll explain to you in a minute, is kind of passé. We're not doing AYP anymore. Or at least safe harbor, which is a 10% reduction in partial proficiency, grades 3 through 7, and AYP, or at least safe harbor in math for grades 5 through 7. How do we do? The first goal, we did put, I don't know if anybody has tried to get on our website recently. We're in the process of completely revamping it. We're putting tabs on to make it easier to read, and so we're adding data. Ben, who's been working with us, is coming back tomorrow to finish up, and really what he's doing is training our people to add additional data to the website. So we do have the links to the NWEA New Jersey Ask on the website. We do have information regarding the tests were highlighted and shared at report card conference times. Information was highlighted and shared for advisory council meetings at the school level. The student progress also is monitored using multiple measures, state and standard assessment, classroom performance on class assessments, homework and participation. Spring 2013 calendar will include more conference times for parents. So when we invite parents in the spring for conferences, we're going to invite some additional parents to the parents that we've already been invited.
I think with this goal, we were concerned about map testing, and Marie did put that on all the calendars too, correct? So that's another bullet that we could put
You're
here.
right, you're right.
Parents were notified when map tests would be
Map testing
given,
was happening.
right?
Yeah, right, you're right, I didn't put that bullet on. Okay, and this goal was improving communication to the public. So we did a better job this year of maintaining our web calendars at the school level, keeping them up to date.
The website was revamped and redesigned for easier access to information. We're going to be giving families the option to receive email communication for announcements when I do Global Connect calls. One of the thoughts about text messaging is a little tricky. We've also gotten some feedback from people that if they only have a certain number of minutes on their phone, do they have to get every Global Connect call? I know people are limited to the amount of text messages they have, so we're still working that through to see whether or not it is a good option for people. I'm not sure that it is, but we're going to try to get some feedback to see if it is a good option. You approved the addition of a part-time technology assistant, so with improved tech support, we think we can ramp up some of our communications as well. In the third goal, third and fourth grade and seventh grade didn't attain AYP or Safe Harbor. You saw that. But grade 5 did attain Safe Harbor. So that was the goal. Maybe you weren't going to make AYP, but you're going to make Safe Harbor. And grade 6 was just a point away and may attain it when we get our final results. So that 6th grade group and the 5th grade group, things went well. They did at least attain that portion of the goal. But because New Jersey participated in the NCLB waiver, there is no such thing as AYP anymore. Thank goodness, because the performance on state measures is going to change. The state assessment in 13, spring of 13, is this hybrid version, and how are we going to be able to tell how well we do if they're not even given the same test? So we're going to be looking to other measures, and in 13-14, PARC will be launched. We have to make some decisions about whether or not we're going to be using it online. So Lynn, to answer your question about why does it take so darn long, they tell us that within 72 hours of taking the PARC assessment in the web-based version, we will get results. So I don't know that we're going to be able to get whole class results or cluster results, but at least we would get, we're thinking probably similar to what we get with NWEA. We get that student score as soon as they take it, and then we get the additional results as soon as our window closes.
Can it be taken on the iPads?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there is going to be a pencil and paper version, and when they go down, we don't even know what they're going to do about writing yet. We're keeping our ear to the ground. I can't imagine third graders having to compose on a computer and being scored for that. That could be very tricky. So, you know, yeah. And how much time are they going to have to do it and all of those things. So stay tuned. The other thing I have to say is that the state of New Jersey continues to be in a state of flux. There were 2 assistant commissioners 6 months ago. Now those 2 people have left. Penny McCormack, who was the chief education officer, is now the superintendent of Montclair. And Dave Hespy, who was either an assistant commissioner or in some capacity at the department, is now the president of Runnemede County College. So they continue to be in a state of flux. They told us that when we were going to do the NCLB application this year, they were going to use a whole new system and train us on it. That went away. That's not what they're using. And the training, we got an email to say, here's what you do, excuse me, for the new SAGE system. So they're short people. They have these goals, and you know, we get in position for if they're going to happen, but we also know that they might not. This was the math goal. Grades 5 and 6 hit the mark. They attained AYP, not just Safe Harbor. They got the measure. So we were concerned about 5, 6, and 7. 5 and 6 did it. 7th did not. We've talked exhaustively about 7th grade last year. Math is the most significant change in the transition to the new Common Core state standards. So what are we doing about that? I attended a workshop, and I've turnkeyed it out to our administrators. We're doing a whole process of unpacking the standards, and our teachers, we're going to work in small groups with our teachers at grade level to unpack those standards and align their instruction to the Common Core standards. We're learning it this year. So the aligned curricula are written and approved in the Common Core standards. We're going to work together monthly. We talked about that. We're taking a look. They're starting to release stuff. The new PARC assessment stuff is starting to be released. I sent it to all the teachers. We're taking a look at it too. The good news is they're giving us some sample questions to see what they look like. So we're getting some previews, and teachers will have an idea as to what the questions will look like. So what they're going to do through the course of this year is say, all right, if this is what the standards are, and this is what we have to teach, and this is what our materials are we aligned? Are we not aligned? They're gonna be making notations as to what new materials they may need. And one of the things that this board will be required to do is to make sure that the budget gives you everything you need for the materials. We're in a position where if we want our children to do well on testing, and we want their performance is very important, of course it is, then we need to make sure that we have everything we need to help our children be successful. So my guess is you're gonna need to be looking at perhaps next year, instead of just doing first grade for Rigby, it'll be K and 1 and getting that rolled out. And math will be another whole story, because everyday math is a different philosophy. I know I said this before, it's University of Chicago research versus other research. It's Chicago versus Singapore, Singapore won, whole different ball game. Everyday math doesn't match up. We're gonna work with it this year, because if you don't work, because we don't really know who's got what works with Common Core standards yet, because Common Core standards are new, and we've heard from experts that it would have been premature to try to adopt a whole new math series when the math series, the textbook companies haven't really hit the mark on Common Core standards yet either. So we're going to let our teachers make some determinations about what they need and possibly pilot some stuff through the course of this year. Okay, new teacher evaluation system, got to keep that in mind. We've talked about that. Where are we with all of those things? You'll see a timeline in the next slide as far as the requirements are concerned. The other thing that we haven't talked about, but is a part of this, is that the district is going to have to also make some decisions about a principal evaluation instrument, and that's got to be made by December as well. We also, with the new tenure law, this is something new that I don't think I have mentioned to you before, we have to have school improvement panels. Those school improvement panels consist of principal, assistant principal, teacher. They will oversee the mentoring of teachers. In some cases, and I don't know how it's going to work here, I'm not a big fan of it, but they even have teachers conducting evaluations on other teachers. I think peer observation and feedback is one thing, but evaluation, it's a little different story. Conduct mid-year evaluation of teachers that are deemed ineffective or partially effective. I think we talked about the fact that teachers are going to fall into one of 4 categories. Principals are also going to fall into those categories as well. And it's going to be the obligation of the school improvement team to identify professional development opportunities to help those teachers mid-year if their initial evaluations demonstrate ineffectiveness. We also are required to train all the teachers in the new instrument and all evaluators. All of that is happening. Here's the timeline and where we are with everything. The Evaluation Advisory Committee needs to be established by October 31st. Well, we've already formed the in-district folks. They met through the course of last year to take a look at the instruments. Mr. Buckheim has agreed to join us as a board member. And our first meeting in this official capacity is going to be September 6th at 1:30. Did we move it to Friday the 7th? You're probably right.
Because I have
This was just looking at your phone. Okay. All right. It's the 7th. I'm sorry. Okay. Didn't look at my notes, but I had it in my head.
Sorry, benchmark training.
You're right, you have the benchmark training on the 6th.
Benchmark, are you guys working on that in the fall, like, as well? Like, because that took a tremendous amount of time of professional development. I have that as a question for the next slide.
Doing benchmarks?
Yeah.
That's coming, that's part of the unpacking. We're gonna start unpacking, and then we're gonna create benchmarks, because unpacking has evidence. If you want, I'll show you what the templates that we're gonna use and give everybody. But the template for unpacking the standards is circle the noun, find the noun, the verb, what are they expected to do, where does it fall in Bloom's taxonomy, and the evidence of whether or not they've learned it.
And also the goals.
The goals. Right. We're going from students will be able to, the
Right.
SWABAT, to we are learning to, so we're going from SWABATs to walls.
Mark
We
that
are
down, Mr.
going
Earl.
to W, like
What'd you
Waltz?
say?
Mark that down,
Walt.
Walt.
Waltz.
We're going to Waltz.
We're gonna waltz, okay.
Yeah, this was part of the training, it's the Connected Action Roadmap that came out of PSA, FEA up there, they do a really nice job with some of this stuff.
Have you booked
So,
it?
I'm sorry, the PSA is the New Jersey Supervisors, Principals and Supervisors Association.
Gotcha.
And their FEA is, what the heck does FEA stand for?
I thought it was foundation.
Foundation for Educational, something.
Association.
And that's another thing, I don't know, I just use the letters now. I could probably say them in my sleep, but, so, that's their professional development branch. So, we were desperately looking for things to help our teachers get through and figure out what are the Common Core standards gonna mean for us, so we got some tools to be able to do it. And so, the evidence will then become benchmark assessments. So you're right, it's huge. I think of it as a 2-year goal.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so, where are we with adopting the evaluation rubric? We began our training on the Danielson model. I'm going to give the teachers an overview of the Danielson model, which is the new model that we're going to use on the first day, and then they're going to get their Teachscape training in the fall. And Teachscape and Danielson, what Teachscape is the data collection module that reflects all of the Danielson domains for evaluation. And probably sometime in the fall, either September or October, probably more like October, I'll be able to give the board more explanation about what the Danielson model looks like, what the domains look like, so that you can see, exactly what we're looking at, what we're homing in on when we go into classrooms. So we're in good shape with all of those things because we're ahead of the deadline with most of it. The evaluators have started the online training. There's a web-based training for Teachscape. And we met together and we got started, and now we're going to map out some additional dates to take a look at the videos together, and we actually will become certified Danielson evaluators, so, which is a good thing.
We mean district.
The evaluators.
Evaluators.
Evaluators will be
Gotcha.
certified Danielson evaluators, yep, on Teachscape. We get to sit for a lovely, I figure I probably am gonna need to, make sure I take some.
No dose.
No-dose could be a good word, but I'm thinking, gosh, whatever it takes to help me focus, whether it be medication or meditation, I'm going to need to make sure that I focus on this because we sit for 6 hours, 3 and 3, to take the test, and then if we don't pass it, we do have a chance to take it again. Everybody
And it's a
pretty much passes
20-hour
it.
online training, too.
Right, 20-hour training. So it's
And
intense.
it pretty much takes the time that they say it takes.
Yeah.
And I know they said you could get through it quicker. The only way to get through it quicker is not to watch the videos.
Yeah.
And you only have 2 times to take it, so if you fail.
We're not certified.
Yeah, you're done.
So, but I think there'll be a great value to. We're all excited about using the model. Mark's very excited about taking the
I
test.
can't wait to take the test. I
I
think it's a 504.
I don't know. Maybe we can put a real quick bottle of the word with it. I know.
I might break my arm on purpose.
And we'll give you an emergency 504.
Yeah.
And somebody else will take the test for you.
someone's
Describe it for me.
Someone's gonna click for you.
So here are some ideas based on all of this for goals. Of course, the board will come up with ideas, but these are some things that I thought you wanted to think about. And the first one I thought might be clearing the timeline for the new superintendent search. Before you know it, when we think how quickly the years go by, and me, because I'm mature, the years go by faster every year. So I would recommend that you do that. And then the easy goal is to implement the new teacher evaluation system according to the mandated timelines, because it's mandated. Developing benchmarks of progress in all grades and subject areas, 2-year goal. So that was something we were together on, Samantha. And the board's responsibility here is to make sure that there is ample budgetary support for the new initiative, the
handling all the instructional materials and whatever staffing, we talked about staffing and things like that, that could change for 13, 14. So, that's all I have. We've
Looks
been
good
at
to
this
me.
a long time.
Thanks, man, looks good to me.
I'm happy. Not that I want to put words in your
No,
mouth,
no.
but I thought it might be helpful if we could bring it all together.
Well, we definitely need to, begin working on number one. I don't know how I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would like to post that position sooner rather than later and, start that whole long process. And Nancy has stated before that, you know, she would be willing to, you know, show somebody the ropes, mentor somebody, whoever the person may be. And so, I mean, I don't know if it's possible, but in my mind, I was hoping that, you know, the candidate would be selected by like mid-year. And the reason why I'm thinking that is, I mean, there is a possibility that 3 of us board members here could not be here with the elections. So I would like to have it done by the end of this year, by the end of the calendar year, if possible.
So what would be a good thing to do, you could either do it as a whole board in the public meetings, or you could create a committee, an ad hoc committee for the purpose of putting together your vision of who you want that candidate to be, what qualifications you want to have, what attributes you want that person to have, and then create your timeline, bring it to the whole board, and then the board would have a plan. And like you said, because of the importance of potential turnover, it would be good to have a lot of that work done sooner rather than later.
Well, Nancy, could you and I meet and
Absolutely.
could we talk about forming a committee and the committee meeting before our September board meeting?
Sure.
And having a timeline presented for the September board meeting, because it's already September.
Yes.
So this needs to happen and the timeline needs to be done by the September meeting so we can start the process after that.
Very good.
Does everybody agree with that?
I agree.
Okay. So I can come in
Absolutely.
one day this week, I'll come in.
Sure.
And another thing is with doing that, coming in and possibly having, like, I wrote notes here, like an internship, and then would be helping and assisting with like hiring new staff and things like that.
It would be
Since
helpful to have somebody in place.
that person would be the leader of the district, they should have an input on who
Absolutely.
is coming into the positions with retirements and things.
Absolutely.
Obviously, the second bullet is easy because Nancy already did all, the district, the administration is doing all of that for us, so thank you for that. 20 hours of training and better guess the first time.
You've been on watch.
No, thanks.
They're very exciting. The 360 camera, it's like you're looking at a circus mirror.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
I'm not a fan of webinars as much as I dislike some professional development. I'm a face-to-face kind of person than the webinars. They drive me insane. So no, thank you on that part. Thanks for offering.
Anybody else? Invitations there.
Benchmarks definitely needs to be a 2-year goal because that is going in all grades and all subject areas. That is going to be a big, long process.
Because if we do what we've got planned, we will
Right.
have the learning objectives
Right.
and evidence done by the end of this year. But
Okay.
we will not be at the point where we've developed the benchmarks. So I
Right.
guess decisions will have to be made by whoever comes along next, whether that's going to be summer work,
Right.
you know, or whether that's going to go into the following school year.
Okay.
You're talking about the benchmark assessments?
For the new
Yes.
core content standards.
So the NJ ask would not fall under that bullet, correct?
No, that's
Benchmarks
something
are
that-
like
Right.
benchmarks of individual learning goals.
Right, okay.
The fourth bullet, if we have retirements and such, we just are gonna have to depend on Joanne, and Joanne, I'm sure, will remind us that we need to be fiscally responsible and save some of that money to make sure that we have kindergarten and first grade next year for the rate B, and anything else that will assist, anything else that will, some math stuff, whatever we
Math
need.
could be a
Math could be
huge,
huge, because you might have to adopt K to 8.
a whole new math series.
It's really a shame because everyday math works for us,
Right.
but we really
Is there
can't stay
any,
with
is
it.
there any, I know this is a early question, but is there any publishing company right now that brings something that would align with some of the philosophies of everyday math, but still be able to
That's
bring?
what we're taking the time to look for,
Okay.
that, because you're right, when you look at our math scores, and you even listen to our kids talk about math,
Yes.
and how many of them are excited about math, love math, and think mathematically and algorithmically. And I hate to lose that math acumen that they seem to have and excitement that they get with everyday math. So you're absolutely right. We have to look at what's going to keep that excitement and interest,
Right.
and then get them to align to the Common Core.
And us as board members can also, maybe down at the convention, take a look and really stop and listen to some of the publishers and get some information and bring back some information to our staff on the different math programs there, you know?
Right.
Because they're all there.
But see, the biggest thing right now is because these core standards are such a new entity and what's going on, the publishing companies haven't reacted professionally to publish.
Or they will
Like,
tell
I
you
don't
that
even
they
know if
have.
next
They
year
will
will be
tell
the
you
time
they
and
have,
maybe
but
the
they
year after
truly
that.
haven't.
A couple
That's
have come out with programs, but again, Corky Strong, who's been attending those workshops, said that almost everyone's jumped into something, but the people giving the workshop said it's better to wait, because this might not be the best thing that's going to happen.
Right.
Now, what we did in the K to 3 is, I had some money left in the budget last year, and I purchased new everyday math teacher manuals, and they have a new version this year called the Common Core Standards version.
Okay.
And of the workbook, and that didn't cost any more money, because I buy them, they're consumables, I buy them every year anyway. So I did buy that this year, but it's not that they put a few things in there. The problem is the whole way everyday math is taught.
Right.
With the spiraling curriculum, it doesn't bring the kids to mastery, which the new standards
Tell you that you must have.
they
I
demand
agree.
mastery.
Right.
And so it'll go back to kind of more the way I believe all of us learn
Learn
math, where you
traditional
have
math.
a chapter on addition carrying over zeros, and you spent weeks on that, and until you got it, you know, whereas here they introduce it, and then you do a couple days with it, and then you go away from it, and then maybe a month later you're gonna see it again, maybe
Right.
2 months later you'll see it again. So it's a whole different approach.
Right.
So technically, when we purchase the math, we're probably gonna have to be thinking K to 8.
And
And
but-
that's gonna be massive.
This year, people will create new things,
Yes.
but then we don't know if they're good either, so it may be in our benefit to wait one more, not even 12, 13, but purchase for the start of 13, 14
Right.
school year,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Well, 12, 13's this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, but you
You
mean
mean
for the
14,
next
too.
grade.
You mean
yeah,
15, yeah.
to see
14,
to see a little bit of data, to see how people, the districts that did jump in,
Mhm.
to see what they're saying.
Right.
So can, and this, obviously I'm not a teacher, is it possible to implement, if you're working off of that curriculum, is it possible to integrate, for instance, those sheets that we're talking about, that's not an everyday math sheet.
No.
Because
No, that's-
doing an
that was
addition
the-
sheet every day, the way, setting the clock on the microwave for 1 minute for him to master his facts,
Right.
is truly the way we learn. It's,
Right.
you know, what I've been
Exactly.
doing all summer with flashcards,
Right.
that's it.
Because everyday math never did a good job with facts. So
Right.
we had to
But-
find a way
Right,
to.
but Miss Vance sent it home every
Right.
day, and every day we did the same thing, and
Right.
you know, it was like Miss Carvelli coloring in the lines.
Right.
She made a colorer out of a little boy who never colored his whole life.
Mhm.
So it happens, you know what I mean, which is a great thing.
Right.
But it's so funny when you think about it, if she hadn't have interjected that, he wouldn't have been as proficient as he was, because you're right, he took 3 months to carry math. 3 months. And I would say to her, are you sure? Because he's just not getting it, we're fighting over this. No, and he did, but it's that, it took so long.
Right, you stuck with it.
But it's a long time.
Yeah.
It's not the way we learned it. It should be done by that point, you know what I mean?
What they're gonna have to do is, in the discussions about the standards, we're gonna have to talk about what we're not gonna spend a lot of time on.
Yes.
You know, like the everyday math teaches them that algorithm of the partial sums, and they spend a lot of time on that. They're not gonna be able to do that. They're gonna be able to show it to them, might work for some of them, and then they're gonna have to show them how to do the traditional method, and they're gonna have to beat that, you know? It's gonna involve, there's a lot of probability in everyday math, there's no probability in the new standards. None.
Is there probability though in New Jersey Ask?
Well, this year.
But that's not gonna matter though next year because it's gonna go to
It's gonna be
Park.
Park.
Okay.
That's why you couldn't put, you can't put standardized test goals in there because everything's changing so much, it's not fair.
So virtually what we're gonna have to do is pick and choose from the everyday math what we're gonna emphasize.
Right.
And then we're gonna have to supplement
Right,
with
we're gonna have to find a program that's gonna
more
integrate
practice
skills, right?
in the
Yeah.
things that need to be supplemented.
Give me a ballpark figure, K-8 math series,
I have no clue.
just a guesstimate.
Well, if you're looking, just say the Rigby series, you're talking 15 grand per grade level.
And I'd say at least
And that's I think that's conservative.
Okay,
So
so
you're
let's go, so,
20,
Well,
20,000.
so let's say 20, so
20,000 per grade level.
200,000, over
I
100,000?
would say over 100, between 100 and 150,000.
And sometimes you get a deal from book companies too. If you're
Right.
buying a K-8 series,
Yeah.
you might get a lot of stuff thrown in.
Right, right.
So maybe you could find that for 7th and 8th grade might be a little more flexible in their ability to do that because of the way they do their program anyway.
And they're not using everyday math.
They're not using everyday math. And our kindergarten actually already figured out some stuff because they started already to do aligned to the Common Core, and they pulled different materials and supplement everything.
Well, they don't have a book
Right.
for kindergarten, so what they did was they took the whole spiral and they just pulled the things together. Like say, so we're gonna do addition, we're gonna do all
And they
addition,
threw
we're gonna
out,
do all
and they threw
subtraction.
out, and
They pulled it all together, because they're not dependent on the
They
book.
crafted it.
Yeah.
So that's what this unpacking the standards is gonna be, really, for grades 2 through 6, 1 through 6.
1 through 6.
To craft how we're gonna use everyday math with new materials this year. And we may find that, you know,
Get the
we
best
don't,
of
we're
both
not,
worlds.
right, we get the best of both worlds, or we don't have to race into full implementation, because maybe 1st and 2nd grade can say, wow, we can do this, this, and that, and still use everyday math, and take our time to adopt a new series, and then do it by the chunks instead of by the $150,000.
Until about 10 years from now, when they decided to go back to
Everyday
everyday
math
math.
works best.
It's a publishing company, that's all it is, that's what it is. So if we don't use, which we used this past year as our benchmark, and we said that we were having that high goal of 10%, if we don't set a benchmark and we're afraid that the numbers are gonna be skewed, how are we gonna make sure that we didn't rescind in this upcoming
We
year?
didn't make regress instead of progress.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's my question. If we don't even set it as an obtainable and say,
There are gonna be schools.
even though the grading system may not be fair, as we would like to see it based off what we're doing, if we don't set it something, what's to say we don't go back?
Because there'll be school-based goals that have to do with instruction. So if you want to add a goal from the board to say, to ensure that school-based goals address performance, classroom performance.
Well, if you look at, I just went back to the school-based goals, initiatives and changes for Holt School. Right, they're all about instruction, infuse elements of RCI in the middle school, provide consistent instruction on a daily basis to enhance skills. And then also something else I really like is advisory periods. Mr. I also mentioned something that he wanted to do about keeping parents informed. They're all the kind of goals I like. And so we could say something blanket, like Nancy said, did you have
Well, I told you I'm keeping my math and writing goals.
You're keeping your math
Keeping the
and
math
writing
and
goals.
writing goals, because we need to still hammer those things.
Yeah, because continue to create new ways of
Yeah.
incorporating more parent involvement in school activities. We, last year, concentrated a lot on maintaining public, relationship with the public and things, and I think that's where Mr. Mr. Mungo were going with everything, more documenting and reporting on student progress, the work with parents. I mean, I think
Mine's
that.
communication, period.
But I think that I am, me, okay with something like Nancy said, to just a blanket saying that, to make sure that school-based goals
Are developed to
Are developed.
address student performance.
To maintain school-based goals.
because, and then next year at our retreat,
Yeah.
they can give us data on how did this work. They'll do the same thing they did this year. Right.
School-based goals are maintained.
And we need to still concentrate on math and writing.
I think we need to, because we're not quite where we want to be.
Yeah, you also have the benefit of those goals being aligned to the Common Core standards,
Right.
so you don't have to worry about it. So you're already good with that.
And of course, our other is the full implementation of the RTI program this year,
Right.
where we're actually going to have 5 days a week with the ROI.
So, could you just bullet it for us by the next meeting?
Yeah.
We already have volts, so could you just give us a little bullet for Downing and Bingham?
Yep.
Well, we
So
want,
we know.
also want the goals to be quantifiable, so you want some sort of a way of a measure. So it needs to be a SMART goal that is measurable. So you could turn a couple of those goals into measurable goals and then.
Or I could add some, and I still think,
Well,
you know, you're looking at the ask, I mean, I know one of the things you're talking about is decreasing your partial proficiency over the next, whatever that 5-year plan is,
Absolutely.
50%. So we could start by, whatever that would be.
But I mean, you adding in full basic skills and intervention at volts is probably going to do that, so you can just add a couple words to that goal. You
Right,
understand what I'm
the
saying?
goal can just address your basic skills students.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to even address all
It
students.
doesn't have to address everybody.
But however
You want it,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Is it possible to review the results at the September meeting from the detailed information that comes
Sure.
in, I think you said the 10th,
It's
right?
supposed to get it the 10th of September.
Or is that not enough time?
No, that's enough time.
Yeah?
Yeah, because it comes in pretty outlined. for
Oh,
us.
it does, okay.
They break down all the subgroups and, about your free and reduced lunch, your economic disadvantaged, your minority students. They break that all out for you.
Okay.
We'll do something.
Yeah.
We'll do charts.
Yeah.
Charts and summary, so we'll give you cluster information, in other words, where our weak areas, because like we said, we're gonna get that. And then also we'll do a gap analysis of how our students do.
So there's some amendments or revisions to these goals. There's one more added.
Possibly.
Possibly, okay.
And you could even knock off the create the timeline for the superintendent search as a goal and add this other goal, just knowing that that's, you have to do it. I mean, there's nothing you can do, you have to do that. But however you want to do it. So you're looking at adding a 5th goal, to say school-based
To
goals,
maintain school-based
redevelop
goals.
to address student performance.
And that encompasses all 3 schools, if you state it that way?
Yes.
Okay.
District 1.
Does anybody else have anything else that they would like to add? Anything else that they were thinking? Anything else that's important?
I do, it's something not too big. We talked earlier about self-esteem and things of that sort. I know we had this discussion before, but can we revisit uniforms at some point in time?
Well, could you, Joanne, investigate for us the question that when you ask me this, I'm gonna ask her, how much of a district cost that would be? Because I believe, don't we need to supply uniform for our free and reduced lunch?
Free and reduced lunch, yes.
So
Okay.
what,
37% of our students are free and reduced lunch. Which is
so
not-
what do we have to give them?
That's my question.
I don't know, because they do it in Camden.
I know, so,
But I used to work in Camden and we gave them uniforms whenever they, even when they looked dirty.
We'll have to do some legal research on it. And
and see where things have stood regarding it. We're in a much better place than we were 5 years ago. But if that is an interest of the board, certainly can be researched.
I think there's an out on that, because my last 2 years at the vocational school, and I pushed this for like 10 years, the superintendent felt that we would have a lawsuit that was illegal. Our superintendent retired, we got a new superintendent, and he had a different attitude on it. And
Legal to what, to have uniforms?
We have, oh, yeah, they've had uniforms there, I
There's
retired
uniforms
6
in
years. So that's
many
based,
some public schools.
so we have uniforms, it's a very basic uniform, and we did not have to provide uniforms for children on the pretty much program, because we were able to show to the families that by going to uniforms, it was less money you're spending for your child's clothing during the course of the year.
And
So-
Angel doesn't want like a embroidered,
No.
and just like maybe navy blue and white, or whatever.
It was simply, the students could wear khaki, the boys could wear khaki or black or navy blue slacks, because our school colors were blue and gold. And in the warmer weather, they could wear shorts. Shorts could not be the ones where your cheeks are showing, especially with the gals. Girls could wear skirts, I think they were called, skirts, culottes, shorts, slacks. We had shirts were long sleeve, either the very formal dressy with the button-down collars, or you could wear the golf shirt type. But it just followed our school colors. Your pants, just as a gentleman, had to be at your waist, and you had to have a belt on, because we got tired of looking at people's underwear and other things. So it was a very basic uniform, but what made it fly was we had a lot of parents on the committee and students on the committee. My staff only made up 1/3, so the students and the parents had 66% of the vote on the type of uniform, and it worked. We didn't get sued by anybody, and it did change the atmosphere in a positive way, especially, you know, at the vocational school, 72% of the kids came from the city of Camden. And they didn't have a lot of money. And then we had kids from other parts of our county that would come in dressed with, you know, $120 sneakers and $120 blue jeans, and comments were made, and this eliminated that. So I think, I know the uniform thing works because I did. And it made a difference in the atmosphere. And we did not have a single lawsuit. But one of the things that I had to do as principal, and you had to do that, was, I guess it was, once it was adopted, starting around June 1st, I had 1,350 students. I probably had 150 parents that called, wanted to speak to me directly. I had to talk to each of them. I probably had about 50 conferences. My kids not wearing a uniform, I don't know what to say. And by the time school started, I think the first day of school, we had 20 or less that came to school without a uniform. And we corrected that within the first month. But are there problems? Yeah, there's some, it has a problem.
Can you mandate that they have to wear them?
Oh, absolutely, they had, yeah. And
And what happens if they come in without?
they went to internal suspension. We also had, what the district did do, we bought some uniforms, and the parents had an option. You can come into school, bring your child proper clothing. We'll supply we have some clothing, and they would put it on and then go to classes, because I'm going to go back to your comment about we don't want them out of class, they're not learning. And at the end of the day, they'd come back to the office, they would change back into their clothes. We were lucky we had a couple washers and dryers, so we could wash them. But, I mean, so you got to put together a game, but it does work. It does, in the long run, save parents a lot of money. There's no competition any longer about I know better than you, because I get this, I paid this much for this top.
So maybe we could,
Ridley School District.
maybe we could, maybe we could bring it up at back to school nights and say,
We could just
survey, and like give it.
Survey is a good idea.
Have a survey at back to school night, because that, most of our parents come out at the elementary level, and maybe send it home here. But we get a lot of people back to school. Have the survey here, you know, have Angel sitting there telling her that it was her idea, and then she
You're
was.
not the only person
I've had a few parents
That's
approach me
fine.
about it.
survey.
I would save a ton of money, because my son will be.
The survey.
You definitely have to have the community involved and the student body to help them do it.
I mean, I know that they tried it recently in the past few years at the Black Horse Pike Regional, and the parents said no.
Parents said no.
But, you know what I mean?
Well,
But
it was also tried in this district when you were students.
when I was younger,
It was
I
an
remember.
optional program here, and it flew for maybe half the school year.
Yes.
I don't think you can make it optional. I
Really
think
can't.
I think it has to be either
I
yay or
understand,
nay.
but at that given time, that was the
Exactly.
legal way to go.
When I was principal, we did it in my school district. There were parents who were interested in it, but we did optional because at that time legally it was the way to go. This was in maybe 2001.
Okay.
And when I left, because it was still optional, as much as what we did to try to encourage it, we probably had about 70% participation. I wore one every day because I wanted to model it as the principal, and I thought it was wonderful, but after I left, they wound up doing away with it. The board did away with it. So, but I think we're in a different place now because Penny's has them. You may
Everywhere is so economical.
Walmart has them. I think it's wonderful. Most parents really like it.
So we'll have to do a survey and revisit it maybe in October, because after all the back-to-school nights are open and we can get the survey results.
But I agree with Charlie, I think to get a committee that's made
Yes.
of the majority of parents
Students.
and students
To pick the uniform.
to, if that's it, yeah, yes,
So
absolutely.
we
I
can get,
think, I think if that is gonna roll it out, that would probably be one way to entice that we're gonna have a committee if we go this road and this is how it's gonna be constituted, so you'll still have a say in it.
Definitely. Yeah, we even did.
we have the whole
we-
field
sixth
hockey
grade,
skirts,
we
plaid field
did
hockey skirts.
Absolutely. We can wear this, wear that outfit.
I'm sure they're hanging soon.
My committee, when the sixth grader did this dolphin logo, and then they did, we embroidered it on the shirt, we had a contest for the logo, it was a lot of cool stuff. Okay, we'll move forward on that.
Right, that's right, Mr. Bayer did come to a meeting and was interested about that, Ms. Davidson, so maybe he could definitely be someone who we asked to be on our committee.
Sure, good.
Maybe people would be less threatened and want to change our dress code, because uniform would have, to me, I went to, Catholic school, and I had a uniform. Because you had to wear it so often, it's gray and woolly. But, I see the kids going to Camden and they're waiting on the bus. Each school has their own color.
Oh,
It's not something, you know,
they're so cute.
so you buy a pair of navy blue khakis, some kids wear maybe with a white collared shirt. It's not necessarily a uniform, because some people in our office where I work, their kids go to Camden schools, and it was cheaper. You just went out to a sporting goods store or Kmart and you bought the color. So it's more of a change of dress code as opposed to having a whole uniform. You're going to a uniform company. You could buy these
Anywhere,
pants
Walmart
and
has
slacks
Old
or
Navy,
pants or
they
a
all
shirt
have-
of the same color, and you can tell what schools the kids go to when they're waiting for the buses.
By their colors.
We actually reached out to many of the clothing stores that are out there. And J.C. Penney's right here in the Decker Hall worked really well with us and gave the kids just had to show their Camden County Tech ID, and they got a 10% discount on the white, gold, and blue shirts, because those are our school colors, with the black and the khaki slacks or shorts. They were a student, they knew it was a uniform, because the gentleman who was the manager of their trade and stamped it up, they showed their ID, they got a 10% discount, so the parents were saving even more money.
Right.
But I think Patty's right, to move away from the word uniform and to move towards
A new dress code.
might be a better selling.
Then we'd have to revisit our policy as
Exactly,
well.
well, yeah, to change the language.
I think it starts out with the policy and, you know,
Well, I still
also.
think you'll have to get your parents together. to
Right.
see
Committee
this.
first
Right.
before
Right.
policy
Right.
change.
But that's a repercussion of, we have to.
Back to school nights are like the third week of school, so we'd have to have some kind of.
Just get a little survey together.
A survey.
Yeah. But I mean, are you gonna decide what it's gonna look like? or-
No.
Oh, no, that,
It's
it's just getting a sense of whether or not you have parent support.
Okay.
On the survey, you might want to have a box where they check off, I'm willing to serve on
Serve on the
this committee
Mhm.
for students, maybe also.
Right.
Well, once you realize you want to go in that direction, then to get the students involved, try and get. And we didn't just pick the kids that were honor roll students or never had in trouble.
There's the
We-
Renaissance program.
We wanted a flavor from even the kids that said, there's no way I'm wearing
Doesn't
it.
really get
We
it.
wanted them there to see
They have
and
to
talk.
accumulate all these points.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything else that they wanted to bring up? Does Mrs. Connor, any public comment? No? Anything else?
My last thing that I have, if the principals could, is there anything that your teachers need to do their job better? Do they need anything? Is there something that we can do to help them out? I mean, I know we always talk to administration and everything, but maybe there's something that we're not seeing that they need to be asked. Is there anything we can do to help them in their job besides get them more teachers?
One of the things that I think you've done is hire that new technology, because that is the most frustrating thing, I think, if you ask the teachers, is the fact that the technology doesn't work. You know, like, so that situation, I think, may have already been remedied by your help with that extra person. That's gonna be big. And it's not, and I don't wanna indicate that that was Jeanette's fault. She just had too much on her plate to get around to go into a classroom to fix a computer so that a whiteboard would work. You know, I mean, she just didn't have the time to get to that. She took care of the big things, the labs, the networks, that was always handled. But the little stuff that the teachers on a day-to-day basis need, that's what we need somebody to do.
If anything else comes up, please make sure let us know so we can try to help them do their job the way that they want to do it.
Yeah, I would say, I bet if you surveyed them, that's their biggest frustration, was the technology.
On the technology note too, someone was asking me the other day if we as a district have ever contacted like community colleges, universities, as far as purchasing their hardware, their computer hardware to help our programs.
I can give you a little bit of information on that. Government agencies are allowed to donate to other government agencies free of charge. So when you hear of Kinney County College or another district getting new computer systems, they can, if I'm not mistaken, you may know more about this than I do, Mr. Buckheim, they can either auction off, right? Or
I have to listen first, right?
they can donate. Or they can donate. If they do, they're allowed to give to us. They just cannot give to an outside,
Just like we are
private entity.
And also, take that a step further, school districts get grants to buy equipment.
They sure do.
If another school district closes down that program, you can ask to take that equipment, you can receive and then begin using it. So that's one way you can get your hands on something that maybe you don't have the money to buy, another district maybe closing down the program. If it was through grant monies, that equipment could be transferred to your school.
So that might be an idea. Is there a way that we can be on top of who gets awarded grants? Are we notified when?
I used to find out through the county superintendent. That's how I have a good working relationship with the county superintendent.
There hasn't been any grant money out there for technology in quite a while.
Okay, but I'm just saying, is there any way that we would have a direct line to our South Jersey University systems to know whether, you know, they're getting, I mean, certainly, I mean, it usually happens when the fiscal year begins. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that they're networked in any way, but I can find out.
So when are you talking about getting the equipment they don't want anymore?
Yes, yes.
Getting their
Basically, it's like a management asset system that's really all we need within, you know, the realm of our educational needs. But the
Do they still have
universities
do they still have the superintendent roundtable meetings? Possibly through that, you know, one superintendent may be saying to the rest of them, you know, we have
But
this program.
I don't mean within local school districts, I mean from the university level down to local school districts.
Yeah.
Because that's where, you know, the filtering system begins, so to speak.
Or even just on, like, for instance, my own place, we're getting new computers. So all of our old computers are either going to be auctioned off, or we can give them to another government entity, such as a school district.
That's what I'm saying. How do you get on that contact list, I guess is my question.
Okay,
How do you get on that
You are
contact
now
list?
the new liaison
They
to our
do it, I
government
do not know,
agency.
but I can find out.
Okay.
Find out, let me know.
Friendly with the purchasing agents.
I'll find out. What?
You have to know somebody.
Yeah.
With everything.
Schools are doing away with programs or they're revamping theirs. I get notification that the schools have equipment that's available, best offer, come get it.
Right.
Sometimes they're just giving it away.
Right.
And
We have gotten
anything
equipment.
that's technology related, I always forward it to Jeanette.
Okay, and is it? have
But
you
a
ever-
lot of that is outdated.
Outdated, right?
Yeah, I realize that, but, have you ever received anything like that from university settings? That's,
No,
see,
because
that's
it's
the
coming
thing.
from us, you know, within our.
Yeah, well, our own school districts, no, but if you can figure out a way to take it one level higher, it might be something that would
If
benefit
they're a
us.
government agency, perhaps there's a website that they're
Yeah.
required to post it on, that
I
we
think
just
there
have to
is.
make sure we see.
I think there is a website.
Mhm. We'll have to research
For
that.
some reason,
I think that these
what it went on before.
the
You have to
iPads
start for with an auction.
Right.
You can opt, the board can opt as to what they're gonna do.
Okay.
They can either, you can either auction or you can.
They're working. Did anyone try and work the iPad yet, Amy asked?
they're functioning, we're ready to use
No,
them?
we're not ready to use them yet.
No,
No, Apple is coming in soon to do a deployment, but we're not ready.
okay. September, October?
I would say October.
So if, when you buy a program, Reading 180, whatever, let's go there. And if Triton has it, and we're a sending school, we're not entitled to any of that usage? Or
Because
it's,
we've got a single license.
it's a
Then
single
we have to
license?
have a license per kid,
Right.
actually.
Right.
Let's see, if we were a county-wide educational system in the state of New Jersey, that could be a feasible item to discuss, but
So,
we are not.
so a shared, if we use shared services with other school districts, can other school districts?
You're still gonna wind up with software, it's very license oriented, and it's usually by.
Oh,
You're still gonna have a per student fee.
okay.
So, we did get
No, I was
consortium
just-
pricing
the
for
question.
Teachscape, so they discounted us on everything for Teachscape. We're in with a large Camden County, South Jersey consortium, I don't even know all the districts that we're in. But
I know we use a lot of
sometimes
our
they can-
Title I money for that too, because it's helping at-risk students.
Oh, yeah.
That program helps at-risk
I bet
students,
they pay for it.
so they pay for it with the Title I money.
So do we have Title I money left over at the end of the year, or no, we use all our Title I?
We use it. One of our basic skills teachers is paid out of our Title I.
Right.
It has to be used, doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Right, it has to be down there.
And I purchased all of our LLI, the level literacy stuff with the Title I money. It's pretty much, if there's anything left at the end of the year, it's a couple thousand. We only get $150,000 total,
So that's where Miss Epstein's going.
part of.
Right,
One day
because
we
she's
just put it
helping
there,
all.
The other day is coming from 2A, which is professional development.
So 2020.
Any other questions?
Yes. In reference to these workshops and the, I guess it's the state convention for board members, in October, knowing the committees that the superintendent and the president want me to serve on, there are workshops I would like to attend. It would be helpful.
Good.
So what's the process? What do I do?
Let me know.
Let Joanne know.
What-
Let's-
And
by
anyone
what-
else that definitely
Is
wants
there a
to
point you need to know
go.
by a certain date?
That, no, so I have to block rooms, but I can't do that until I know for sure that, like, because I don't wanna reserve a room, because I have to pay for it, and then someone not go, because I'm.
I can guarantee I will know if I say no.
Alright. So anyone, let me know for sure, by next week, really.
By next week?
Yeah. Whether you wanna go, I don't need to know what workshops you're gonna go to, because I don't even
okay.
know what that process will be yet as far as
Alright.
signing up, but I think it's online.
I'm gonna ask the board to let you know by Friday if they're gonna go, because
By
the,
tomorrow?
what?
Tomorrow or the
By
following?
this Friday?
Never mind, I'll think
This
it's
Friday?
Like in the next week, if you're gonna go, because because
No,
Joanne has to block rooms, and then we need to, they book so quickly, and did you make that, a copy of that for everybody?
Yeah.
Joanne made a copy for everybody, again, of all of the workshops that are there, so, you can take a look at it, see what you need, what you would like to do. Joanne, could you also let people know they must take something there, like a governance course or something like
Yeah,
that?
and the one thing that was online the other day, actually, that's, there's a number, right? Governance 1 will not be available there, no, 2, 3, and 4, take one of these down. So this is advising you of that, but, I believe it said that on the governance 1 would be online.
Oh, governance, what's gonna be online?
I think it said that. And there was gonna be more
The
information.
new board members need to get governance.
One, okay, so, if you could let Joanne know, give her a buzz or an email, by the 10th, or excuse me, not the 10th, I think it's the 7th, next Friday the 7th, whether you're going, whether you're staying, and what you want to be registered for, so that way she can get on that. Is that okay? And can we, and I'll let John and Maria know that also.
Okay.
Okay.
I had one last question.
Okay.
And that is, I believe you told me I'm going to be serving on the finance committee and the property committee?
Property and transportation get
Okay.
together.
How are we notified as to when we're getting together and information we're going to be discussing? How is that happening?
What happens with our committees,
Go ahead.
what happens with our committees is that they're more as needed than they are
Okay.
regular meetings.
Not a regular
They
meeting?
don't meet
Okay.
on a month that there isn't anything to discuss. So we typically, between Joanne and I, we notify you regarding meetings.
Okay.
Most of our meetings take place right before a board meeting, so that if you've blocked out a Wednesday night, you know that you're probably gonna arrive at 5:30 or 6 o'clock,
Okay.
and then,
Because I've served on a board of ed for Black Horse Pike, and the committees did not meet the night of the board meeting. We met separate nights.
yeah.
And there are
You can
instances
do
that we do meet on separate nights,
Okay.
so,
Something comes out.
Thank you.
no problem.
It's 2 meetings.
Anything else? Patty, you go ahead. So then I believe we just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second that motion.
Motion made by Angel, seconded by Patty, all in favor?
Aye.